Chapter 121. Sister Faye, don't waste your energy. It's been a few days, but she hasn't said a single word. Even if you ask again, she definitely won't say anything. The little white tiger could not help but speak up when it heard that. As it spoke, it even squeezed its head into the young girl's arms and looked at Baihu curiously. Its two eyes swept back and forth between Baihu's two tails from time to time. It was very curious. Foxes were not too difficult to find. Most of them could be found deep in the mountains. However, it was rarer for Baihu. That was because, according to ancient legends, white foxes were born with spirituality. Thus, they were also called spirit foxes. Once they were born, they were royalty in the fox clan. However, Baihu could also be seen from time to time. However, it was Baihu and a fox with two snow-white tails behind it. It was extremely rare, but the little white tiger did not know. In this world, the true king and royalty of the fox clan was not Baihu but the nine-tailed celestial fox. The nine-tailed celestial fox was not too different from other foxes when it was just born. However, once it cultivated, it would show its uniqueness. They would actually grow a second and third tail behind them. These tails are not grown for nothing. Every additional tail meant that their cultivation had advanced to a new realm. Thus, one only needed to look at the tails behind a nine-tailed celestial fox to determine their cultivation. The more tails there were, the higher their cultivation would definitely be. Furthermore, a typical demon could only awaken one set of supernatural powers. Every additional set of tails would mean an additional set of supernatural powers for the nine-tailed celestial foxes. One could imagine how heaven-defying it was for the nine-tailed celestial foxes to awaken 9 sets of supernatural powers, while other demons only had one set of supernatural powers. Thus, the nine-tailed celestial foxes were also known as the race that was blessed by the heavens. They were a race blessed by the heavens. Legend had it that once a celestial fox grew its 9th tail, it would possess an immortal body and monstrous supernatural powers. It would be able to move unhindered, control the sun and moon, and change the universe. It was said that its supernatural powers were invincible. Unfortunately, the nine-tailed celestial foxes suffered a great calamity because of their unique physique, and there were almost no survivors. Once he was discovered, it would be impossible for him to escape from the vicious hands of the cultivators. Fei smiled like a spring breeze. It's fine. I can feel it. It's not that she can't speak. She just doesn't want to. He turned to look at the little white tiger and said with a smile, "Little White, we've walked for such a long time. We must be getting closer and closer to your brother. Don't worry. Otherwise, you won't be pretty when you see your brother." She wasn't wearing any gorgeous clothes, and her looks weren't outstanding either. However, when she smiled, there seemed to be an invisible force radiating from her body. It was as if everything in the world around her had become brighter with her smile. Inadvertently, one could see that little flower bud, who was hiding in a crack in a rock, could also feel this strange force blooming at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was truly miraculous. To see the flowers bloom, he didn't use any power at all. It was a natural occurrence. Sister Faye, Little White isn't in a hurry. The little white tiger shook its head when it heard that. However, the anticipation in its eyes revealed its thoughts. It muttered, "I just don't know where my brother is now and if he's doing well." This sentence clearly revealed that it didn't mean what it said. The young girl chuckled softly. At this moment, her laughter suddenly stopped. She stopped walking forward and turned to look at the bushes at the side. Squeak, squeak. There was a series of rustling sounds from the bushes, and a few strange cries came from behind. Then, the bushes were pushed open, and 2 little golden monkeys appeared in front of them. This monkey's entire body was covered in golden fur. It was a dazzling golden color and was very lovable. It was none other than the golden-haired monkey of the monkey tribe. The 2 golden-haired monkeys, one male and the other female, seemed to be a couple. The 2 monkeys came out of the bushes and looked around. When they saw the young girl not far away, joy and intimacy flashed across their lively eyes. They were not afraid of strangers at all and skipped towards the young girl. Furthermore, they did not come empty-handed. One of them held a peach branch that was filled with fresh and exceptionally tempting immortality peaches. The other carried a bunch of bananas and skipped in front of the young girl. They carried the immortality peaches and bananas in front of the young girl and started chirping. It looked like they were letting the young girl eat these fruits to fill her stomach. When the young girl saw this, she did not decline and was not very surprised. She smiled at the two golden-haired monkeys and said, "Thank you for giving me fruits to eat, little monkeys." As she spoke, she reached out and gently stroked the two monkeys' heads. Chirp, chirp. When the two monkeys saw that the young girl had accepted them, they quickly put the fruits on the ground and jumped in joy. However, they did not stay here any longer and turned to run towards the bushes from which they came. As they ran, they glanced at the young girl. Every 3 steps they took, they looked back and disappeared into the bushes. The young girl smiled and picked up the fruits on the ground. She found some clean water, washed them, and ate them. Her expression was very natural. Immortal cultivators are all very rich, especially core formation cultivators like her. This time, my foundation has increased greatly. In a myriad demon valley, Sakura, who had always been proud and aloof, flashed a trace of excitement from time to time. In front of him, there were several shining magic tools and magic treasures. The aura exuding from each of them was extremely powerful and extraordinary. The Black Ape King and the others left directly after the battle and did not mention Li Kanglin's body at all. They turned around and left, leaving Di Shirtian alone. Naturally, Li Kanglin's body and belongings all fell into Di Shirtian's hands. In fact, he also understood that the Black Ape King and the others saw that Li Kanglin was killed by Di Shirtian alone. If that was not the case, he would have escaped from the southern wilderness long ago. Therefore, they did not mention the remaining spoils of war. Otherwise, if Li Kanglin had died under the joint hands of the demon beasts, the spoils of war would definitely not have been monopolized by one demon beast. It could be said that this time, Di Shirtian had picked up a big bargain. The body of a core formation cultivator was an immeasurable treasure. In addition, his soul had been absorbed into the king pattern, adding a battle soul to the king pattern that was far more powerful than before. In addition to the belongings, it was hard not to have a big harvest. A spirit boat, a flying sword, a set of armor, and a number of spirit talismans. They must be treasures to be collected by that core formation cultivator. Di Shirtian's gaze swept over the treasures from time to time. Among them, he had seen the floating cloud boat before. Li Kanglin had taken it out at the last moment to escape. This spirit boat was definitely a flying treasure. There was also the green vine battle armor. Its defensive power was so strong that even the demonic mist blade couldn't cut through it. It could be said to be a pretty good treasure. However, the demon race cultivated their own demon body. For him, the battle armor was undoubtedly of little value. Then there was the flying sword. Di Shirtian took a closer look and saw that it was a high-grade metal attribute flying sword. As for the other spirit talismans, the powerful ones were almost all used up. The rest were all ordinary spirit talismans. There was not much to be praised. Swoosh! After putting all the treasures into the storage bag, Di Shirtian lay on the soft fur. A deep expression appeared in his eyes as he secretly pondered. This time, I killed an expert among cultivators. The southern barbarian must have attracted the attention of cultivators. With the situation of the demon race, there will definitely be a bloody battle in the southern barbarian in the future. However, now that Medusa has condensed an inner core and turned into a demon, her strength has greatly increased. Some small forces will not be able to shake the southern barbarian. Moreover, the southern barbarian should not be in the cultivation world, but in the secular world. This could also buy a certain buffer time for the southern barbarian. After secretly thinking about it, he faintly had a plan in his heart. I must get enough strength to protect myself during this time. Also, now that I have the 7 sins demonic zither, I must learn how to play the ancient zither. Speaking of which, thinking of the method of driving the ancient zither before, Di Shirtian himself felt a little ashamed. It was completely like a layman, a country bumpkin. However, even so, he could make the ancient zither exert such power. If he knew the ancient zither and played a song, what kind of scene would it be? A light flashed in his eyes, and there was a faint feeling that if he could have the strength to protect himself in a short time, he might be able to get an unexpected harvest from the ancient zither. However, to learn the zither, I have to enter the human world. With my current appearance, I'm afraid, not to mention integrating into the human world. Even if I enter the human world, I will immediately attract the attention of cultivators. Do I really have to wait until I pass the shape-shifting demon tribulation and become a human before I can go? Thinking of this, his heart could not help but tighten. If he really wanted to shape-shift, he was not sure how long it would take. To enter the human world in a short time, I'm afraid, it's a bit difficult. He smiled bitterly and looked at the sky. The sky gradually darkened. It was evening again. He did not think too much about it. He lay on his stomach at the spot where a skylight had appeared in the cave abode. He closed his eyes, and his mind entered his body. He began to circulate the tiger roar technique. He inhaled and exhaled. Slowly, his breathing became extremely rhythmic. A cloud of black, demonic chi naturally appeared beside him. From the skylight, specks of moonlight essence continuously fell from the sky. They quickly surged into his body through the pores all over his body. Squeak, squeak. In the underground world, a huge yellow rat was standing in front of a tall altar. It was looking at the mysterious yellow bead on the altar, and its whiskers kept trembling. It let out a strange laugh. Ha ha! This king has finally become a demonic beast. Powerful, such powerful strength. My entire body is filled with powerful strength. This king is indeed gifted. The Rat King laughed arrogantly, its two beady eyes flickering with excitement and arrogance. Its previous timidity was swept away, and its confidence was soaring. Sigh, the second update might not be released until tomorrow because I'm really too sleepy. It looks like I'll have to adjust the update time in the future. Otherwise, if I sit up too late, I won't be able to bear it. Chapter 122. Congratulations, Your Majesty. Your Majesty has finally become a monster beast. Rat Boss jumped out of a hole stealthily. Seeing Rat King laughing wildly, he rolled his eyes and knew that His Majesty must have broken through to the realm of a monster beast. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. In the southern barbarian lands, only one race with a monster beast could survive for a long time. Now that Rat King had become a monster beast, it could be foreseen that in the future, the strength of the Rat Clan would definitely be greatly enhanced. Squeak, squeak. Not bad. Your Majesty, I am already a monster beast. Let's see who can compete with me in the underground world this time. Rat King shouted with exultation. Rat Boss, you did well this time. It's all thanks to the two-legged monster that you brought with you that I was able to break through. You've been with this king for so many years, so I definitely won't treat you unfairly. In the next 3 months, you can come here to bathe in the divine light at any time. When you become stronger, I will let you be the Rat General. The 3 whiskers on his left and right were constantly trembling, each one like a needle. Thank you, Your Majesty. Rat Boss's 2 small eyes immediately lit up with surprise, and he hurriedly knelt down to thank him. Rat King nodded, very satisfied. However, a light flashed in his eyes, and he suddenly asked, Rat King, I asked you to send your subordinates to the vicinity of the Myriad Demon Valley to monitor the movements in the valley. What did you do? When he mentioned the Myriad Demon Valley, his eyes revealed a cold look full of hatred. Rats were the most vengeful. Rat King was no exception. In the Myriad Demon Valley, he suffered heavy losses. Millions of rats were buried in the valley and became food for the creatures in the valley. Moreover, his proud defense was also dimmed under D-Shirt-Yin's powerful attack. In the end, he even fled back to the underground with his tail between his legs. This was undoubtedly a great shame and humiliation. It was very difficult for him to forget it. If it was before, even if he held a grudge, he would not have the courage to find D-Shirt-Yin. Now that he had broken through and become a monster beast, his courage had changed on the spot. He could not help but be a little brooding about what happened in the past. So, don't let the rats think about it. There was a look of horror in Rat Boss's eyes, and he said in a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, the Tiger King of the myriad Demon Valley is amazing. When you were in seclusion, you didn't see it. They were actually fighting with a lot of two-legged monsters. It's really scary." It turned out that when D. Shurtian's group was fighting against the other cultivators, Big Rat's group also secretly opened 1 or 2 holes in the ground to watch. They wanted to see if they could take advantage of the situation. However, he did not expect that he would personally witness such an earth-shattering battle. Even today, Ratdo was still endlessly afraid of such a scene. Terrifying. It was simply too terrifying. When he thought of the scene where D. Shurtian's tiger roar caused countless cultivators' internal organs to rupture and die on the spot, he became more and more afraid. He could not help but feel an instinctive fear towards D. Shurtian. As he thought about it, he recounted what he had seen back then. Hearing this, Rat King's expression changed. The strong confidence that emerged after becoming a monster beast was extinguished on the spot by a bucket of cold water. The foreign cultivators are all very powerful. I did not expect that there would be so many casualties in a single battle. It seems that we can't provoke the myriad Demon Valley. Rat King temporarily dismissed the idea of finding trouble with the myriad Demon Valley. However, this idea was only temporarily dispelled. As long as he had the strength, it would continue to emerge. Yes, I also thought that we could not provoke them for the time being. Rat Boss quickly nodded and agreed. This kind of result was also the best for him. He did not want to face that terrifying black tiger. However, Rat King's tone changed. His 2 small eyes rolled around and flashed with a strange light. He said, "Since the cultivators are not as scary as we thought, we can't let them go." There was a kind of cold breath in his voice. He looked at Rat Boss and said, "Pass down the order. Let all the Rat Clan dig underground tunnels to the entire Southern Barbarian as fast as possible. I want to expand my underground kingdom to the entire Southern Barbarian. Also, let people keep an eye on the Southern Barbarian. As long as there are cultivators entering the mountain range, immediately report it. We have to take action first. The meat of those cultivators is really delicious." Suddenly, the entire underground world was completely moved because of Rat King's order. One by one, the rats rushed forward in all directions, desperately digging underground tunnels. One tunnel after another ran through the entire underground world. If this situation was exposed, it would definitely be a shocking and huge project. At the same time, the rats also sent countless spies to stare at the various entrances of the Southern Barbarian. As long as there was a movement, they would report it to the underground at the fastest speed. These rats were simply relying on a dense intelligence network. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 10 days and nights quietly passed between heaven and earth. In the blink of an eye, it had quietly passed. During these 10 days, D. Shurtian was immersed in cultivation every day. He constantly mobilized the refined blood essence from his body and fused it with his body. This blood essence was the best treasure to strengthen the body. Every drop of blood essence was very precious. It was the essence of the human body. Every time he fused a drop, it would make his demon body stronger by a bit. This kind of cultivation, the longer he cultivated, the more intoxicated he felt. The feeling of becoming stronger all the time was really too intoxicating. Coupled with the refining of essence chi into demonic chi, such a cultivation speed was absolutely unbelievably fast compared to ordinary demonic beasts. And just as the 10th day passed, 3 uninvited guests, 1 human and 2 demon beasts, arrived outside the Southern Barbarian mountain range. "Little White, we're here." The young girl Fei looked at the vast and boundless Southern Barbarian with a trace of excitement in her eyes. She reached out and gently stroked the head of the little white tiger in her arms and said seriously, "I asked the nearby magpies earlier. They said that your brother brought a large group of birds and beasts into the Southern Barbarian. If there's no accident, your brother is in the Southern Barbarian. We're here." The young girl's expression was also very happy. After a long journey of almost a month, they finally arrived at their destination. Even she couldn't help but feel a heartfelt joy. Great, I'm going to see my brother. The little white tiger revealed an excited gaze and was eager to move in the young girl's arms. It looked expectantly at the boundless southern barbarian. And let's go in now. The young girl nodded and stepped into the southern barbarian. Not long after, she had already disappeared into the forest, and even her back couldn't be seen. They actually came to the southern barbarian. A little white tiger is looking for its brother? Could it be that the person they're looking for is him? At this moment, no one noticed that a trace of surprise and shock flashed across the eyes of Baihu, who had been in the young girl's arms all this while. She looked at the little white tiger, and her heart suddenly became unsettled. There was a faint, complicated emotion in her eyes. That's right, it was complicated. The human-like eyes in Baihu's eyes were truly too special. If they were discovered by others, they would be able to tell at a glance that she was definitely not an ordinary Baihu. Furthermore, she was definitely not simple herself. That's good too. If it's really him, it'll save me the trouble of looking for you again. I've completely suffered a huge loss because of you this time, Baihu thought to herself. After making up her mind, she closed her eyes and rested. The southern barbarian was said to be lush with towering trees. All kinds of flowers and plants were densely distributed in every corner. Furthermore, the southern barbarian had rich spirit energy that the secular forests did not have. Once one entered the forest and breathed in, one could feel the difference in the air. It was fresher and more comfortable, and breathing it into one's body made one feel refreshed. I heard from grandfather that the southern barbarian is a very special place on this mainland. There are many secrets buried there, but no one knows about them now. The young girl widened her eyes and looked around curiously as she spoke with a trace of reverence. She was very respectful towards the grandfather she mentioned. What secret? The little white tiger could not help but ask curiously. This time, even Baihu could not help but perk up her ears to listen. Clearly, she was extremely interested in this secret. However, the young girl shook her head and said, I don't know either. I only heard from grandfather that there's a huge secret in the southern barbarian. As for what secret it is, I'm not sure. As she spoke, she walked into the depths of the mountain. Swoosh! On the side of the road that they walked past, an almost undetectable sound was heard from the ground. A mouse stuck its head out and quickly scanned the surroundings. Suddenly, when it saw the young girl in front of it, its small eyes immediately revealed an excited expression. It turned around and burrowed back into the ground. Furthermore, they were rapidly rushing toward a certain direction through the numerous tunnels that extended in all directions. Di Shirtian, who had been lying in the cave for a total of 10 days without moving, opened his huge tiger eyes without any warning. 2 sharp rays of light shot out from his tiger eyes instantly. The demonic fog outside him suddenly retracted into his body. If one looked carefully, one could see a trace of puzzlement in his eyes. Why do I feel so uneasy all of a sudden? It's as if someone related to me is in danger. Why is that? Di Shirtian showed a puzzled expression. He was still immersed in cultivation and the wonderful feeling of constantly increasing power, but suddenly, for some reason, the chi and blood in his body tumbled, and a kind of impetuous emotion emerged in his heart for no reason. This kind of emotion made him no longer in the mood to continue cultivating. It was no wonder that he was puzzled. After all, his cultivation time was too short, and he had never encountered such a situation before. How could he know what it meant? In fact, in cultivation, this kind of situation was called a whim. To put it bluntly, it was a kind of omen. A whim was extremely efficacious. Once he had this kind of feeling, it meant that he would be in danger or his loved ones would be threatened, and so on. All of these were closely related to him. I really can't take it anymore. I want to fall into bed immediately and have a good sleep. In the future, I'll try my best to push back the time a little. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com to read more chapters. Support the author. Support the legal reading. Chapter 123. This kind of premonition was quite accurate. It was a feeling produced in the dark. It didn't appear, but once it appeared, It must be a matter of great importance. Therefore, no matter who it was, once this kind of whim feeling appeared, they would pay great attention to it. Because if they ignored it, perhaps a disaster would come in an instant. Although D. Chertion didn't know much about whim. However, the inexplicable irritation in his heart made him unable to continue cultivating it all. Why do I have this strange feeling? What does this mean? Sakura pondered inwardly. However, no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't pinpoint this feeling accurately. This was really because he knew too little about cultivation. It hadn't even been a year since he stepped into the path of demon cultivation. Although he had broken through to the realm of demon beast at an incredible speed, it was still not enough. But he knew too little about cultivation. There was not much information obtained from the bloodline inheritance, and there was no description of this situation. This made him puzzled. He secretly made up his mind that in the future, he must learn this knowledge systematically. Otherwise, it would have an impact on his foundation. Ignorance and ignorance were definitely not what he wanted. Forget it. Looks like I won't be able to continue cultivating in this situation. Anyway, there's the demon refining cauldron in the demon abode. The demon refining cauldron will refine on its own. Although it's a little slow, it's still equivalent to an ordinary demon beast cultivating diligently. Suddenly standing up, D. Chertion turned and walked out of the cave. He wanted to leave the valley and walk around in the southern barbarian to see if he could relieve the irritation in his heart. Otherwise, it would be very disadvantageous for cultivation. If he went mad, it would be terrible. He left the valley slowly and walked around while looking at the surrounding environment. It looked like he was inspecting his own territory. The morning dew in the forest was like stars, hanging on the tips of the grass and leaves. The fresh fragrance came with the wind. Strange flowers bloomed silently in every corner. There were also patches of rhododendrons. The crisp chirping of birds came one after another. The entire mountain forest was filled with a kind of fresh and natural air that he couldn't enjoy at all in his previous life. It made people feel relaxed and happy. Of course, along the way, there were not only these beautiful scenes, but also a lot of miasma, swamps, and poisonous gas, which made people feel terrified. Different scenes shrouded the southern barbarian lands in a mysterious atmosphere. Sister, why is it so quiet here all of a sudden? I have a bad feeling about this. The young girl carried the little white tiger and walked in the forest with Baihu. She had originally planned to ask a small animal after entering the mountain to see if she could find out the whereabouts of the little white tiger. However, the strange thing was that after they entered the forest, they felt a strange aura appear around them not long after they entered the forest. Insects and birds do not sing, and beasts do not sing. The surroundings suddenly became abnormally quiet. This kind of silence was somewhat strange. The little white tiger's eyelids twitched wildly. As a beast king, its sharp senses made it clearly sense that there seemed to be an inexplicable threat approaching them. His two eyes constantly scanned the surroundings. At the same time, he expressed his feelings to the girl. It seems that something is plotting against us. A thoughtful look flashed through Baihu's eyes. She couldn't help but look around vigilantly. She didn't have much ability to protect herself now. If she really encountered danger, she might become a pitiful bird. She was secretly on her guard. Her ears perked up high, and her mind slowly spread out to the surroundings. The trees here and the little flowers and grass all told me that there will be danger here. They want us to leave as soon as possible. A trace of nervousness flashed past the young girl's eyes. She couldn't help but tighten her grip on the little white tiger and Baihu. No matter how magical she was ultimately a young girl who wasn't even 18 years old. Let's leave quickly. After she finished speaking, her footsteps began to quicken. Under her feet, the two shoes had already become tattered and could not be worn anymore. Her two sparkling and translucent jade feet gave people a kind of astonishing beauty. It was as if they had gathered the essence of heaven and earth. Squeak, squeak. At this moment, a series of strange cries suddenly sounded in the surroundings. This cry was unusually ear-piercing, as if it rang in one's heart. causing one to involuntarily feel a chill. The ground beneath their feet reverberated with a roar as if a river was surging. The ground started to tremble. The flowers and trees in the surroundings started to shake violently. It was as if there was a sudden earthquake. Sister Faye, Little White is scared. There was a trace of fear in the little white tiger's eyes. After all, it was still a tiger cub that was only a few months old and had never experienced such a scene. It couldn't help but reach out its tiger claws and grab the clothes in front of the young girl's chest. She looked around with fear in her eyes. With the sharp senses of an animal, she could clearly feel that there was a great threat approaching quickly, completely shrouding this area. An invisible pressure reverberated in the surroundings. "Don't be scared. We'll be fine." The young girl's face turned a little pale as she looked around. Rumble! Amidst the crisp sounds, huge holes suddenly appeared in the surrounding ground. When the holes appeared, rats gathered into a ferocious rat tide and crazily rushed up from the ground. They landed on the ground and quickly surrounded this area completely. Rats, so many rats. Why are there so many rats? The young girl cried out in shock. There were simply too many rats surging out from the ground. Each of them opened their bloodthirsty eyes and stared ferociously at the young girl, the little white tiger, and Baihu. In the blink of an eye, they formed a huge circle. There were 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. They were densely packed and made one's scalp go numb. The encirclement was airtight. The scene was terrifying. Oh no, there are so many rats. We are in trouble now. There must be a rat king inside. A trace of alarm flashed across Baihu's face. Thinking of her current situation, her eyes couldn't help but narrow into a line. Squeak, squeak. Welcome, great king. After the rats came out, they didn't pounce on the young girl and the rest immediately. Instead, they surrounded the area and stared at the big hole in front of the young girl with reverence in their eyes. Suddenly, a strong aura was released from the hole. The rats seemed to have sensed it instantly and all lay on the ground. Patter! A rat more than 10 times the size of an ordinary rat rushed out from the ground. Once this rat came out, it respectfully lay in front of the hole as if it was waiting for something. This rat was none other than Rat Boss, who had been conferred the title of Rat General by the Rat King. "Welcome, great king," Rat Boss shouted loudly. Bang, bang. The ground trembled a few times, and with a flash of yellow light, a huge rat rushed out of the ground. As soon as this rat came out, all the rats lowered their heads. Their eyes were burning with fanaticism. Rat King had come out. Squeak, squeak. Rat King rushed out of the hole and landed on the ground. It looked at the young girl and narrowed its eyes. Its nose twitched as it sniffed with all its might. An intoxicated expression appeared on its face as it said, "So fragrant. I smell human flesh. It's so fragrant. Human flesh is so much more delicious than other meats." As it spoke, saliva almost flowed out of its mouth. In its eyes, the young girl in front of it was a piece of meat that could walk. Even from so far away, it could already smell the tempting fragrance. Compared to the cultivator's body it ate before, who knows how many times more fragrant. It had the urge to swallow the young girl on the spot. "Don't come any closer. Be careful, or I'll hit you with a stick." Rat King spoke in human language. The young girl heard it clearly, and her eyes couldn't help but show a trace of fear. She hugged Baihu with one hand and picked up a tree branch from the ground with the other. Her heart was filled with fear as she thought, "I can't sense them. These rats will really eat me. What should I do? I still haven't found Xiao Bai's brother. Grandpa didn't teach me how to cultivate. How can I defeat so many rats?" She was naturally close to nature and had a sharp mind. It could be said that she was blessed by the heavens. However, she had never cultivated before and was still considered an ordinary person. Usually, when she walked in the forest, she could communicate well with all kinds of animals with her aura. The animals were also willing to be close to her. But here, she felt that there was a fanatical power in the hearts of all these rats. Their faith was completely placed on Rat King, and they only listened to its orders. And Rat King wanted to eat her as soon as possible. For a moment, a feeling of helplessness appeared in her heart. What should I do? The young girl didn't have any cultivation. Although Little White Tiger was the king of beasts, it was still young and didn't have the kingly aura of a beast king. Even if it did, it wouldn't be useful in front of Rat King, who was already a demon beast. Baihu looked at the surroundings, and a trace of bitterness appeared in her eyes. Don't tell me I have to fight again at the risk of greatly damaging my vitality? If that's the case, then I don't know when my injuries will be healed. Baihu laughed bitterly in her heart. Squeak, squeak. You want to stop me with a broken branch? Hee hee, you'd better be obedient and let me swallow into my stomach. Such fragrant meat. I can't help it. When Rat King heard that, it couldn't help but laugh strangely. Its nose twitched a few times as it approached the young girl step by step. Roar! Little White Tiger jumped down from the young girl's arms and stood on the ground. Its white tiger fur stood on end as it glared angrily at Rat King, who was approaching it. It let out a tiger roar with a childish tone. She was indeed a white tiger. Although she wasn't an adult yet, when she let out this tiger roar, it seemed to have 50% to 60% of Tiger King's kingly aura. There was a warning in the roar. TSK, TSK, and it's a white tiger. Just nice. Kittens like you are the ones that I run away from the most. I can't afford to offend the black tigers of Myriad Demon Valley. Today, I'll use you as an appetizer. A trace of viciousness flashed across Rat King's eyes when it saw Little White Tiger. When it thought of Shi Tian, it instinctively had a kind of disgust towards tigers. It's a new week again. Brothers, please give me a few recommendation tickets. Those who read the pirated posts on other websites should at least give me a few recommendation tickets after reading them. Also, thank you for the tip from Four Seasons Riches. Chapter 124. Since I can't eat the black tiger, I'll eat your white tiger first. Go and die. A cold glint flashed across the Rat King's eyes. His body moved, and without anyone seeing how he moved, he appeared in front of the little white tiger in the blink of an eye. The moment he appeared, his huge body brought with it a heavy pressure that suppressed the little white tiger's aura. The surrounding air seemed to have solidified. The Rat King let out a strange laugh, and a huge rat claw reached out towards the little white tiger's head. Under its powerful pressure, the little white tiger couldn't even move. It stared at the rat claw coming closer and closer, and a look of fear appeared on its face. There was a trace of regret and attachment in that fear. It turned its head and looked at the girl reluctantly. Sister Fei, Xiaobai can't accompany you anymore. The girl saw a kind of despair and reluctance in the little white tiger's eyes. A look of struggle appeared on her face. She shouted, "Don't hurt Xiaobai." Her voice was sharp, but it hid a kind of helplessness. TSK, TSK. Not only am I going to eat this white tiger, I'm going to eat you too. Don't be anxious. You will be reunited in my stomach later. The Rat King was not frightened by this little voice. Its claw did not stop and was about to land on the little white tiger's head. You're courting death. At this moment, an unexpected change finally happened. The girl's amiable aura suddenly changed. It was completely different. A kind of coldness. No, it could not be considered coldness. Perhaps it was more appropriate to say that it was heartless. A kind of indifferent and heartless aura suddenly changed and appeared on the girl. This kind of indifference was a kind of indifference to everything in the world. It was a kind of indifference that did not care or care about anything. It was as if nothing existed in her eyes. This kind of heartless aura was completely emotionless. It was a kind of strange aura that was completely emotionless. When her aura changed, her eyes and expression became indifferent and heartless at the same time. It was as if the girl suddenly became another person. This scene could be said to be extremely strange. It made people feel a chill in their hearts. The young girl's emotionless eyes landed on the Rat King, and the Rat King immediately felt a bone-chilling coldness from the bottom of its heart. Its paws, which had been about to crush the little white tiger's head, involuntarily stopped in midair. What's going on? How could this be? She was clearly an ordinary person just a moment ago. The Rat King looked at everything in front of him in disbelief. Emotionless waved her hand, and an invisible force slammed into Rat King. Rat King felt intense pain as his body was sent flying without any warning. Bang! It heavily smashed into the group of rats behind it, and over 100 rats were smashed into pieces on the spot. He died in an instant. Yes. The merciless girl frowned slightly. She sized up her body and said coldly, I didn't expect this body to be so weak. I can't even use a trace of my power. That's terrible. She seemed to be dissatisfied, but her expression, even towards herself, was ruthless. Looking at the Rat King that was sent flying, she secretly frowned. Just now, she had wanted to kill it in one fell swoop, but the Rat King was actually able to withstand her attack. She could not help but be a little surprised. Roar! Just as the merciless girl was about to follow up with another attack, suddenly, in the distance, an earth-shattering tiger's roar erupted. It soared into the sky and was extremely domineering. In the blink of an eye, it covered more than half of the southern barbarian. The tiger's roar carried a deep sense of anger and anxiety, as well as a powerful deterrence. The tiger's roar soared into the sky and reverberated in the air continuously. The dense tiger's might on the spot made all the birds and beasts shrouded in the tiger's roar unable to control themselves. They became extremely panicked. Many small animals were even shaken to the point of lying on the ground. The merciless girl heard the tiger's roar and was about to attack again. Suddenly, she stopped in midair and did not continue her previous actions. Moreover, the cold and ruthless temperament on her body suddenly disappeared. She closed her eyes slightly. When she opened them again, they saw that the temperament emitted by the merciless girl had mysteriously returned to its usual peaceful and natural temperament. It was a warmth that made living creatures want to get close to her. Compared to just now, it was simply two extremes. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would definitely not believe that a cold and ruthless temperament and a natural and peaceful temperament would appear on a person at the same time. The merciless girl opened her eyes and looked around. Her gaze landed on the place where the Rat King was thrown, and she was full of confusion. What happened to me just now? Little White, are you okay? She was a little confused, as if she did not remember what happened just now at all. She turned around and looked at the little white tiger. She hurriedly ran over and hugged it in her arms again. Oh my God, it's too scary. Who exactly is this young lady? That aura just now was too scary. I almost did not have the slightest thought of resisting. At this moment, a huge wave of shock surged in by Hu's heart. She saw the merciless girl's change from beginning to end. Originally, she thought that if it really did not work, she would force the group of rats in front of her back, even if it would cost her a lot of energy. However, she did not expect such a shocking change to occur. The moment the merciless girl became cold and ruthless, there was a bone-chilling aura in the bottom of her heart. It was as if the other party could easily destroy her. That feeling made her shudder. The merciless girl's figure unconsciously shrouded in a layer of mystery in her eyes. And that tiger roar, could it be that he really came? Baihu raised her head and looked in the direction of the tiger roar. In that direction, a huge black tiger was rushing at an alarming speed towards the merciless girl and the group of rats. It was so fast that even his figure could not be seen clearly. One could only see that after he ran, there were still afterimages in the forest that did not dissipate for a long time. Tiger roar? Who exactly let out that tiger roar? Why do I feel such a heartache? Indra leaped forward at his fastest speed in the forest. A threatening light shot out from his tiger eyes, and the purple king mark on his forehead was also throbbing crazily. Just now, when the little white tiger let out a tiger roar, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. That kind of pain was as though he was about to lose a family member, and it was a bone-piercing pain. Almost in an instant, he ran madly in the direction of the tiger's roar, while letting out a roar full of intimidation. At this moment, he was already certain that something closely related to him was definitely happening in that location. As he ran, his mind was working furiously, and he kept guessing. Who is it? Who exactly is it? I heard a familiar aura in that tiger roar. It must be from the Tiger Clan. However, in the Tiger Clan, Only the mother white tiger and my two younger siblings are related to me. But they have already been captured by the immortal cultivators. Could it be that they escaped? All sorts of possibilities flashed through his mind. Could it be that they had escaped from the hands of the immortal cultivators? However, the moment this thought appeared, he immediately discarded it. He had already experienced the terror of the immortal cultivators. The ones who had captured them were definitely from the immortal cultivators sections. Given the immortal cultivators' abilities, the white tigers and the others felt that it was impossible for them to escape. No matter why, D. Shirtion already had a feeling that he could not wait to see that tiger clan member who let out the tiger roar. The anxiety in his heart all turned into running speed at this moment. He had already vaguely guessed that the reason why his heart had become restless and unable to calm down might have something to do with the owner of the tiger roar. Because of the restlessness in his heart, he had left the myriad demon valley earlier and wandered around the southern barbarian land. His previous position was not too far from the direction of the tiger roar. Under his extreme speed, he was not far from the place where the incident happened in the blink of an eye. The tiger's eyes were extremely sharp, and he instantly saw everything in the distance. A densely packed group of rats, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, tightly surrounded a small area. Among the rats, a huge rat that was as tall as an adult tiger was standing in front of the group of rats, baring its teeth. It was facing a young girl, a small white tiger, and a white fox that were surrounded by them. It was emitting a fierce light, as if it was itching to give it a try, but it didn't dare to approach it rashly. It had an extremely fearful look on its face. The young girl's sudden change had given it quite a fright. If it wasn't for its own astonishing defense, it would have been blown into pieces on the spot. When he got up, he saw that the girl's aura had suddenly reversed, returning to its original harmless state. However, his previous experience made him not dare to rashly launch an attack. As long as it thought of the terrible scene of not being in control of its own life and death, it could not help but feel timid. No, I'll try again. With my defense, if something really happens, I'll just escape back to the ground. After hesitating for a while, the Rat King made up its mind and felt unwilling. Its two hind legs slammed on the ground and pounced forward. The two rat claws were shining with a dark yellow metal luster, which looked extremely ferocious. However, it also had an idea. The rat claws fell on the little white tiger in the girl's arms. "Scoundrel, how dare you!" The rat claws were raised high and fell on the little white tiger's head again. It was as fast as lightning, and the girl could only watch helplessly. 2 or 3 sparkling water droplets hung on her face, and her eyes were filled with helplessness. However, at this moment, a domineering roar rang out like the might of the heavens. The entire area, within a radius of 1,000 meters, shook violently as if there was an earthquake. The surrounding flowers and trees, as well as leaves and petals, withered one after another. A vast aura suddenly enveloped the entire space, and even the air seemed to be frozen. Many towering ancient trees shook violently, and the veins on the trees were shattered. If you want to know what happened after that, please go to www.chijian.com and read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 125. At this moment, the Rat King could feel a terrifying force exploding on its body. The moment the force landed on its body, it started to tremble violently. The force fluctuated again and again, and every time it fluctuated, the destructive force would become even more ferocious. Squeak, squeak! The heavy tiger roar caused the Rat King, who was about to pounce on the little white tiger, to fall straight down from midair. With a loud bang, the huge rat body crashed heavily on the ground. This crash caused the ground to tremble violently a few times. At the place where it landed, hideous cracks spread out in all directions like a spiderweb. However, although the momentum was great, when the Rat King crashed onto the ground, its body suddenly flashed with a thick layer of yellow light. Under this light, although the ground was smashed into a huge deep pit, its body did not suffer much damage. Indeed, looking into the deep pit, the Rat King's huge body could be seen climbing up from the ground. It shook its head forcefully with a trace of confusion in its eyes. It was obvious that the impact was not light. For a moment, it did not react to what had happened exactly. It was looking at its surroundings in a daze. Whoosh! A strong wind blew from the ground, causing the surrounding trees to rustle. The sand and stones on the ground flew, and the dust and smoke rolled up made it difficult for people to open their eyes. Bang! A pitch-black figure leaped heavily into the encirclement of the rats. When it landed, the ground under its feet shook violently, and faint cracks appeared. A black tiger. A huge black tiger suddenly landed on the ground. The black tiger's body was enveloped in a thick tiger aura. The aura of the king of beasts was undoubtedly on display from its body. It was extremely obvious. The purple king pattern on its forehead throbbed crazily. Every time it throbbed, it seemed to make the surrounding air more tense and filled with a powerful aura of deterrence. The two tiger eyes glared, and the light that burst out from them could make some weak animals tremble in fear. The moment he appeared, his oppressive aura enveloped the entire area. This black tiger was naturally none other than Di Shirtian, who had rushed over. Standing in the arena, Di Shirtian's gaze remained fixed on the little white tiger in the young girl's arms. Furthermore, there was a rare look of excitement in his eyes. "Third sister, your third sister." Di Shirtian's voice trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with agitation and disbelief as he stared unblinkingly at the little white tiger. Third sister. It could not be wrong. When he arrived and approached this place and felt the little white tiger's aura, he was completely sure that this white tiger in front of him was his little sister. This was an indescribable feeling that was extremely strange. It came from the connection in their bloodlines. The same blood flowed in their bodies, and they had been together since birth. Their auras could not be more familiar with each other. There was no reason for him to be wrong. Hence, the moment he saw the little white tiger, Di Shirtian's heart was filled with ecstasy. Although they had only lived together for a few months, the connection in their bloodlines and the relationship between siblings completely exploded at this moment. This was an emotion that he definitely could not experience in his previous life. "Brother, your brother. I'm Xiao Bai." The little white tiger's eyes also brimmed with the same kind of joy the moment it saw Di Shirtian. It hurriedly shouted with a tinge of joy and grievance in its voice. Its body struggled violently and struggled out of the young girl's arms. It jumped to the ground and quickly rushed in front of Di Shirtian. Its two snow-white front paws hugged one of his thick and strong thighs. When it raised its head, bean-sized tears fell from its eyes. A strong sense of attachment was emitted from her body. That look was as if she wanted to release all the grievances that she had suffered during this period of time. "Brother, do you know, mother and second brother have already been captured by those bad guys?" The little white tiger whimpered intermittently, appearing extremely sad. "Xiao Bai, wait at the side for a while. Brother will destroy this group of damned rats first and avenge you." Di Shirtian lifted his tiger paw and gently patted Xiao Bai's head. He comforted it with a gentle voice that he had never used before. As he spoke, he even turned his head. When he turned his head, his gaze instantly turned bone-chillingly cold. Like two sharp arrows, they shot towards the Rat King that was crawling out of the deep pit. Brother, this rat is too bad. He wants to eat Xiao Bai." The little white tiger nodded vigorously with tears hanging down its cheeks as it spoke in a tender voice. "Don't worry, brother will avenge you right now," Di Shirtian said seriously. Xiao Bai also sensibly let go of Di Shirtian's tiger paw and hopped back to the young girl's side. At this moment, the young girl was already dumbfounded by the series of drastic changes in front of her eyes. Her mouth was agape. She looked in shock at the huge black tiger in front of her. However, no one noticed that when Baihu saw Di Shirtian, a shocking look flashed across her eyes. She was deep in thought. "Scoundrel, I allowed you to luckily escape with your life last time. I never imagined that you would actually dare to come out again and even have ideas about this king's little sister. Today, this king will surely kill you. Even if I have to ascend to the heavens or descend to the earth, I'll surely kill you until your dregs." Sakura coldly looked at the Rat King, and every word he spoke carried a type of awe-inspiring, killing intent within his voice. He already had a deep hatred for him. If the Rat King had not been hiding underground all this time, he would have destroyed it without a care for anything else. The Rat King's abnormal defense had left a deep impression on him. Furthermore, it could travel through the ground and appear and disappear unpredictably. It was simply an enemy that made one's heart tremble. It was impossible to guard against it. Now that he saw with his own eyes that this stinky rat wanted to make a move on his own little sister, it had completely touched his reverse scale. A violent, murderous intent was brewing in his body. A tyrannical aura pressed down on the Rat King like an avalanche. Even the surrounding rats were all pressed to the ground. How could these little rats withstand the might of a tiger that was already one of the strongest among the demonic beasts? Squeak, squeak! A fierce light flashed in the Rat King's eyes. The fur on its body stood up like needles. It stared fiercely at Shirtion. It swallowed a mouthful of saliva and shouted, "Humph, Black Tiger, don't think that I'm afraid of you. Let me tell you, I'm also a demonic beast now. You will not be able to kill me." Its voice was sharp. However, no matter how one listened to it, there was a kind of aura in its voice. Shirtion's monstrous aura was simply too terrifying. The moment it appeared, it slammed heavily onto the ground. It was undoubtedly a show of strength. In terms of aura, it naturally fell a little. "Humph. What does it have to do with me whether you are afraid or not? What I want is your life. Go to hell." Indra wasn't polite at all. When his cold voice resounded in the sky, a pitch-black tiger claw suddenly lifted up. On the tiger claw, countless black lights emerged at the same time. Demonic aura that soared to the sky rolled up like smoke signals. His two hind legs heavily stomped on the ground, causing countless terrifying cracks to appear on the ground. His figure pulled out countless afterimages as he slammed his claw towards the head of the Rat King. The sharp claws on the tiger's claw flashed with a chilling black light. The ferocious aura was as if it wanted to devour a person. The rolling black aura covered the sky, and the boundless aura crazily pressed down on the Rat King. "Black Tiger, I am not afraid of you, short-sighted rat." The Rat King roared loudly, as if to boost its confidence. In the midst of the shrill roar, a thick yellow light quickly condensed in the Rat King's eyes. Moreover, as time passed, this light became stronger and stronger. It was like water ripples that constantly flowed in the Rat King's eyes. Chi! The energy from the Rat King's body surged into the Rat King's eyes in waves. When the yellow light reached a peak, an inch of light shot out from the Rat King's eyes. The light shot out from the Rat King's eyes, reaching an inch in length. It was like a sharp arrow, condensed to the extreme. It could pierce through heaven and earth. Within the light, there was a terrifying power. Anyone who touched it would be instantly pierced through. This was the Rat King's innate ability, the terrifying power of the short-sighted rat. Bang! The two rays of light did not just exist in the Rat King's eyes. After they were released, they directly left the Rat King's eyes and shot towards Shirtion with incomparable sharpness. Wherever they passed, the air would constantly sizzle. Shirtion reached out his tiger claw and clashed with the rays of light. In an instant, a violent collision erupted. A few drops of blood suddenly dripped down. Roar! Shirtion's eyes were cold. One of his tiger claws was in a deadlock with the Rat King's short-sighted light. Although the tiger claws were strong, they could not completely withstand the sharpness of the short-sighted light. Two holes appeared on the tiger claws. However, this was already within his expectations. The other tiger claw flashed with a pitch-black metallic luster. With a swift and fierce claw wind, it landed on the Rat King's head. Squeak! This claw was incomparably heavy. It was condensed with a large amount of pure demon energy. Coupled with the fact that the tiger claws were already extremely strong, when it landed on the Rat King's head, a terrifying power poured out and blasted into the Rat King's body. In an instant, a thick yellow light emerged from the Rat King's body and protected it. Bang! The Rat King's defense was unparalleled, but how could it completely withstand Shurtian's full-strength attack? Both of its eyes were smashed, and its blood was violently tumbling. The vibrations caused its internal organs to tremble nonstop. It was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. Its head was forcefully smashed into the ground. Terrifying, too terrifying. This black tiger is too terrifying. My defense has increased by so much, but I still can't completely block it. I can't fight anymore. If this continues, this king will become a dead rat. My great rat life has just begun. How can it end like this? The Rat King's mind was in a frenzy. Although its head was smashed into the ground, its body was filled with endless fear. Its courage had been completely taken away by Shurtian. Without thinking, its two rat claws were like the wind, desperately digging into the ground. Almost in an instant, a huge hole appeared in front of it. The Rat King's huge body rushed into the hole, wanting to escape underground. It was incomparably slippery. In the blink of an eye, it had drilled into the hole. Scoundrel, where are you running to? Today, if you go to heaven, I'll chase you to heaven. And if you go to hell, I'll chase you to hell. Chapter 126. At this moment, Shurtian's voice was unprecedentedly cold and filled with a terrifying murderous intent. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he stared at the hole in the ground. This rat was too detestable. It had provoked him time and time again. If he did not kill it, it would not be able to appease the hatred in his heart. It might even become a huge problem in the future. The last time they met, it was still a demon. Now, it had become a demon. If it continued to become stronger, perhaps he would not be afraid. However, it was a huge threat to the people around him. This kind of threat could not be allowed to happen after his little sister returned. The sentence, "If you go to heaven, I will chase you to heaven. If you go to hell, I will chase you to hell," had completely expressed his firm determination to kill the Rat King. After roaring, his body suddenly moved and directly burrowed into the hole dug by the Rat King. After the Rat King became a demon, its size was not inferior to that of an adult tiger. The hole it dug was extremely large and could accommodate it. Now, Shurtian's body had shrunk to the size of an adult tiger. It was almost the same size as the Rat King. The hole could completely accommodate Shurtian's body. Shurtian followed the Rat King closely without hesitation and directly chased into the ground. He completely displayed his determination to not give up until he killed the Rat King. Squeak, squeak. The battle didn't last long. In the blink of an eye, the tide had turned. When the rats that were originally surrounding the area saw that their king had fled, they didn't dare to continue staying here. They all let out strange cries and turned around to rush back into the hole that they came out from. It was as if the sea had begun to ebb after the tide had risen by the shore. Millions of rats quickly retreated back into the ground at a speed that would leave anyone dumbfounded. In the blink of an eye, the originally densely packed group of rats actually inconceivably disappeared without a trace. The surroundings returned to its original tranquility in an instant. It was as if the strange scene from before had never happened. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, there would absolutely be no one who would believe that a large group of ferocious and terrifying rats had actually appeared here just now. This, Little White, is that black tiger really your brother? The young girl blinked her eyes in surprise and looked at the little white tiger. However, her eyes were as clear as usual. Yes, it's my brother. I can't be wrong. The little white tiger nodded vigorously and said with certainty, "Big Brother and I were born together." How could I be wrong? Although Big Brother has become very big, his aura is still Big Brother's. It was very affectionate. Little White was very attached. I remember that when my mother was still alive, I liked to lean on my brother to sleep. As he spoke, a look of yearning and anticipation flashed in his eyes. He seemed to be reminiscing about the past. "Little White, it seems like your brother is very powerful. Now that you've found him, You won't have to be afraid of anyone bullying you anymore." The young girl looked at Xiao Bai and squatted down with a smile. She gently stroked Xiao Bai's head, and Xiao Bai squinted her eyes in enjoyment. "Sister Fei, when my brother comes back, can you be with Xiao Bai in the future? In the future, Xiao Bai will look for Big Brother to beat up those bad guys. If they dare to bully Mommy, we definitely won't let them off." Xiao Bai looked at the girl expectantly. "Your brother chased him underground. Will he be fine?" The young girl looked at the huge hole not far away. It was pitch black and looked very scary. It made one feel as if a monster would come out of the hole at any time. It was very frightening. Her worry was also reasonable. On the ground, the tiger was indeed the king of beasts. However, when it was underground, the king of beasts might not be able to show off its might. Furthermore, this was not a direct battle between ordinary beasts. It was a battle between powerful beasts at the level of demonic beasts. Such rats did not fear the king of beasts like ordinary beasts. They would turn around and bite you at any time. She could not help but worry that the black tiger would be at a disadvantage underground. No, Big Brother will definitely defeat that stinky rat. The young girl was not confident, but Xiao Bai was very certain. Her eyes were filled with determination as she said, "Big Brother is the most amazing. Big Brother is the most powerful." She thought of the past. When they were still drinking milk by their mother's side, Tian was constantly training his body. He tempered his physical body and grew faster than anyone else. He stood at the top of the mountain and let out a tiger's roar. It could frighten the birds and beasts and make them run around in panic. He could do things that they could not do. At that time, she worshipped her brother greatly in her heart. At the thought of this, Xiao Bai turned her head and stared at the hole with her worshipful eyes, hoping that Tian would come out of the hole immediately. "Scoundrel, you can't escape. If you go to the sky, I will go to the sky. If you go to the ground, I will follow you. Let's see where you can run to today." As the young girl and the little white tiger were talking, an incredible scene appeared in front of them underground. A huge rat was digging desperately in front of them and escaping underground at lightning speed. Its expression was filled with panic and fear. It had to be said that rats were born experts at digging holes. The king of rats was even stronger. While digging holes, it did not affect its escape speed at all. It was very shocking. And behind it, a black tiger about the same size as the king of rats was chasing closely behind. The purple king pattern on the black tiger's forehead flickered intensely. Its two eyes were filled with arrogance and coldness. A cold, murderous intent surged out like a tide as it stared coldly at the figure in front of it that was escaping at lightning speed. However, while the black tiger was chasing, it did not seem to be in a hurry. It did not seem to be using all its strength to chase after the king of rats. Instead, it was very leisurely, which was very strange and strange. From time to time, it would spit out a few threatening words from its mouth. It looked like a cat catching a rat. Damn, it should be a tiger catching a rat now. Indra Tianhu's eyes flickered with a strange light. He thought to himself, "I've seen rats before, but I've never seen a rat with such an abnormal defensive power. Just its innate ability, short-sightedness, already has an extraordinarily terrifying strength. But I've never heard of a rat having such an innate talent and defensive power. Maybe this rat had some fortuitous encounter. Before killing him, I have to grasp this secret in my hands." Looking at the king of rats, he could be said to have several thoughts in his mind. If the king of rats' amazing defensive power was because he had a fortuitous encounter, but when he was in the Myriad Demon Valley, he noticed that almost all the rats at that time were glowing with a strange yellow light. Under this strange light, all the rats' defensive power was increased by 10 times, or even dozens of times. It could be seen that this item that could enhance one's defensive power was definitely not a one-time thing, but a treasure that could be reused and reused. If such a treasure was really taken out, it would definitely be a great treasure. Therefore, when he was chasing after the Rat King, he wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he was following behind at a speed that made the Rat King feel pressured. At every moment, the Rat King felt a sense of dread, as if a calamity was about to befall him. Under such stimulation, The panicked king of rats was very likely to be unable to think because of this. At this time, it would instinctively rush to the place that it thought was the safest in its heart, and that place was very likely to be the location of the hidden treasure. Even if things didn't go as he expected, he could still catch up to the Rat King at any time without suffering any losses. This little calculation would naturally not let the king of rats know. Black Tiger King, how long are you going to chase this king? Stop chasing. This king admits defeat. As long as you let me go, this king will never provoke your myriad demon valley in the future. The king of rats desperately dug forward and kept digging. From time to time, it would look back and see Tion chasing after it reluctantly. A deep fear constantly emerged in its heart, and it was so frightened that it kept begging for mercy. The king of rats' eyes could be said to be filled with horror. It never thought that Tion would be so desperate and even dare to chase underground. Admit defeat? It's too late. Even if you go to heaven or hell, I will take your life. Tion did not seem to be shaken. He was still the same as before, following closely behind. When the king of rats heard this, it immediately knew that there was no possibility of reconciliation between it and Tion. Its heart hardened, and its eyes burst with a resolute look. It gritted its teeth and said to itself, "Fine, you forced me to do this. This king does not believe that you will dare to chase after me when I get there." It seemed to have made up its mind. Its body, which was originally straightforward, suddenly turned around and dug quickly to the side. It turned in a direction and dug hard underground. Its body was still quite fast. There's a change. Tion saw this and could not help but have a flash of light. His spirit was lifted, and he became energetic, following closely behind the king of rats. At this time, Rat King didn't speak and dug forward with all his might. Sakura, on the other hand, unhurriedly chased after him. For a moment, one chased while the other escaped. They actually dug out an underground passage that was tens of thousands of meters long. However, as the king of rats dug consciously, the surrounding scene became strange. No, it's really not normal. This soil seems to be very different from normal soil. It seems to be rock, but is also somewhat different from normal rock. Tion's eyes suddenly became serious. As he chased after the king of rats, he turned to look at the hole that was dug out. Only after looking at it did he discover the difference. Originally, when he was digging at the beginning, what he dug out was soft soil, and there was not much difference. But now, what he dug out was not soil but hard rocks. These rocks were not ordinary rocks. They were as hard as steel. On the walls of the cave, there were traces of strange energy emitting from them. It was very strange, and it was very similar to spiritual energy. The rocks were emitting a fluorescent green light, adding a layer of halo to the originally dark cave. It was as if this was a mineral vein. It was really strange. Moreover, the Rat King used its claws to dig out a tunnel in such a hard rock. This ability was truly admirable. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 127. This rat is really an expert at digging holes, to be able to dig out a tunnel in such a hard rock. However, this rock is definitely not an ordinary ore. It looks like a spirit stone, but it doesn't really look like one. Instead, it looks like some kind of material. Tion carefully observed the surrounding rocks. He discovered that these rocks were abnormally hard and seemed to contain spiritual energy similar to that of a spirit stone. However, he was unable to absorb spiritual energy from these rocks and could only reject the possibility of them being spirit stones. Furthermore, these rocks were abnormally hard and emitted a greenish-yellow glow. If he was not wrong, this should be a good material for refining weapons. He was not in a hurry to catch up to the Rat King. Although he did not know what these strange rocks were, Tion still used his storage bag to store them. Perhaps they would be useful in the future. Gotcha! At this moment, the Rat King, who had been running forward with all his might, waved his claws and dug at the hard rock in front of him. Pieces of greenish-yellow rock flew backward at high speed. Suddenly, at the place where his claws landed, there was an abnormally crisp sound. The sound was very hollow, and a fist-sized hole appeared in front of him. "I've arrived." The Rat King was overjoyed. Its two rat claws danced like the wind and fire wheels, leaving behind countless afterimages as they landed on a mountain wall in front of it. That hard mountain rock was easily torn apart by its claws as if it was tofu. As it dug, the scene in front of it became a little strange. After it dug out a part of the rock in front of it, its eyes suddenly opened up. What appeared in front of it was an incomparably vast space. There was not a single piece of rock in front of it. "Aha, Black Tiger King. I'm afraid you won't have the chance to kill me this time. I'll take my leave first." Rat King's eyes flickered with light as he cheered himself up. He let out an insolent laugh at Sakura, who was behind him. In the midst of the laughter, his huge body directly rushed forward. No one knew where he was escaping to, but he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Trying to escape, Tion leaped forward. His aura soared to the sky. A ferocious pressure pressed forward like a tidal wave. He leaped to the place where the Rat King was originally standing. Just as he was about to chase after it, he saw the scene in front of him. His body, which was about to leap forward, suddenly froze on the spot. A look of disbelief and shock appeared in the eyes of the two tigers. Even though he believed that he had a firm mind, he was still dumbfounded. How? How is this possible? How could such a thing exist underground? It's unbelievable. Looking at the unbelievable scene in front of him, Sakura's mind was filled with indescribable shock. Even the matter of chasing after Rat King was thrown to the back of his mind at this moment. Why? The things in front of him had completely exceeded his imagination. In front of him was an incomparably huge underground world. The space could be said to be incomparably vast. It was impossible to see the end of it at a glance. It was as if this was a complete underground world, presenting the appearance of a small world. In this underground space, there was a thick layer of gray fog above. The fog did not disperse, and it brought about a deathly stillness and terrifying aura. This caused the atmosphere here to be terrifyingly oppressive. Before Sakura had even entered this space, he could already feel a terrifying aura filling every inch of space. Even if he was just a little closer, he would have a suffocating feeling that even his breathing wasn't smooth. He hadn't even gotten close, yet he could already have such a feeling. From this, it could be seen how mysterious and terrifying the thing before his eyes was. Speaking of which, the scenery in front of him was mostly shrouded in fog. Vaguely, he could see a huge, ancient stone door in front of him. There seemed to be various mysterious talismans on the door, emitting an ancient aura. In the middle of the fog, there was a towering, mysterious ancient tower. The ancient tower rose from the ground and was incomparably huge. The strange thing was that the fog could cover other sceneries, but there was no way to cover the ancient tower. Around the ancient tower, the fog could not get close at all. This also allowed Tion to clearly look at the ancient tower. The ancient tower was full of mysterious and ancient aura. The tower was divided into 9 levels, one level after another. On the tower, there were mysterious ancient talismans densely covering it, as if they were some mysterious ancient characters. The color of the tower was chaotic. It was connected together and stood on the ground like an ancient savage beast, emitting a trace of boundless aura. Unpredictable. How could there be such a thing under the southern wilderness? Looking at the appearance of this ancient tower, it has definitely existed for unimaginable years. Is it a relic left from ancient times? Tion looked at the scene in front of him for a long time. He was completely shocked by what he saw. This seemed to be an ancient relic. The aura emitted from the stone door and the ancient tower was almost the same as that of the mysterious ancient tomb in the Myriad Demon Valley. There was a kind of vicissitudes of time, ancient boundless. He guessed that there might be a great secret in this relic. Perhaps there were ancient secrets buried there. This place is too horrible. With my current cultivation, I can't set foot in it at all. If I go in rashly, I may die here. Everyone was curious, and Tion was no exception. However, he keenly felt that there was an immeasurable horror hidden in this relic. There was a terrible danger that could be fatal. With his current strength as a demonic beast, not to mention getting close to the ancient tower, he might not even be able to open the stone door. Weak too weak. In front of this relic that might be an ancient relic, a demonic beast was simply a weak existence. The slightest accident could take his life. His eyes flashed with a trace of fear. Tion had always valued his life. Although he was very curious about the relic in front of him, he did not intend to risk his life to explore it. His eyes turned and landed on an obelisk not too far away from him. This obelisk was abnormally tall, like an ancient sword that stood tall on the ground. It seemed that Sha was very fierce. On the ancient tablet, there were protruding words. Using his full power to look over, Sakura couldn't help but shake his head inwardly. The characters on the ancient monolith were really mysterious. They weren't any characters that he knew, nor were they ancient characters. They were ancient characters that he had never seen before. These ancient words were engraved on the ancient tablet, but they didn't appear rigid. Instead, they seemed to have a strange spirit, and every single one of them seemed to contain a tremendous amount of power. This is not a place that I can set foot in for now. Only in the future, when I become strong enough, will I be qualified to explore the secrets buried in this relic. Sakura decisively shook his head. He didn't lose his mind because of the sudden discovery of the ruins. He didn't rush into the ruins because he was very clear about his own weight. He quietly moved his eyes away from the ancient pagoda and looked in the direction where Rat King had left. He discovered that Rat King had already escaped without a trace. It seemed that the Rat King was very familiar with this place. From the beginning, it deliberately lured Tion here, hoping that Tion would not be able to detect it and enter the relic. That way, it could easily borrow the power of the relic to cause fatal damage to him. Smelly Rat runs really fast. Tion snorted. A cold light flickered in his eyes. He said coldly, "However, I have gained quite a lot from discovering this relic this time. Consider yourself lucky this time." It was impossible to let the Rat King go. However, the underground was very complicated now. Now that the Rat King had disappeared, it would be extremely difficult to find it again. There was no point in staying any longer. He turned around and walked into the tunnel that he came in from before. Then he waved his claws and attacked the top of his head. Boom! The powerful attack cracked the soil and stones above on the spot and collapsed downwards. In the blink of an eye, the road to the relic was blocked. Then, he rushed back along the original path without any hesitation. He already had a complete plan in mind for the group of rats underground. I don't know how my little sister is doing up there. This time, she chased after that mouse for such a long time. I hope nothing bad happened to her. Sakura was thinking about the little white tiger on the ground, so he didn't have the mood to continue staying underground. He followed the tunnel and ran out as fast as he could. There were all kinds of dangers in the southern wilderness. Given the little white tiger's ability, it would not be able to defend against any accidents at all. Although he had previously released the tiger's power to intimidate all directions, it was better to be safe than sorry for such things. At the thought of the little white tiger, Tion could not help but have a deep doubt in his heart. How did my sister escape? And why was that human girl with my sister? I remember that I saw with my own eyes that my sister and the other two were captured by immortal cultivators. No, I must ask clearly. Thinking in this way, all sorts of doubts caused him to be unable to help but arouse a trace of impatience in his heart. He had a premonition that perhaps his little sister's return this time would allow him to know exactly what happened after they were captured and where they were taken to. What happened to the white tiger mother and younger brother? A series of questions kept circling in his mind. What happened back then was a thorn in his heart, a thorn that was deeply stabbed in his heart. Every time he recalled it, a heart-wrenching pain kept surging. He would never forget the feeling of helplessness he felt when he saw them being taken away. It was also this incident that spurred him to constantly move forward. He did not want such a thing to happen before his eyes again. And there was only one way to put an end to such a thing. Get stronger, keep getting stronger and stronger. Sister Faye, why isn't my brother back yet? He's been gone for so long. Did something happen? On the surface, the little white tiger's eyes stared unblinkingly at the huge hole in the ground, hoping that the familiar figure would jump up from below. There was an unconcealable sense of uneasiness in his voice. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support legal reading. Chapter 128. Don't worry, little white. Didn't you say that your brother is the most powerful? That rat will definitely not be able to defeat your brother. Perhaps it will come out very soon. The young lady smiled as she squatted beside the little white tiger. She patted its little head and comforted it. Her eyes also looked towards the entrance of the cave from time to time. She didn't know why, but after seeing Sakura's domineering attack that slapped the Rat King to the ground, she also had an indescribable confidence in him. Although she said this to comfort Little White, she was also comforting herself. After meeting the Rat King and the rest in the southern wilderness, she completely understood that this place was different from the ordinary animals outside. They were all highly intelligent and would also encounter extreme danger and could lose their lives at any time. Dishurtian's power made her feel a sense of security unknowingly. Little White. Just as the girl finished her sentence, she heard an obvious whistling sound from the cave. With a loud whoosh, a black figure jumped out from the ground instantly. At the same time, a strong gust of wind blew towards them with a suffocating aura. But when the little white tiger saw it, it widened its eyes and ran over happily. As it ran, it even shouted, "Brother, why were you gone for so long?" Little White thought that Brother didn't want Little White anymore. As it said that, it came to Dishurtian's side and leaned against his feet. Little White enjoyed the warm air that was emitted. Ha! Dishurtian came out of the cave. When he saw Little White, the coldness and arrogance in his eyes all softened. He smiled at Little White and said gently, "You are my only family now. How can I not want you? If anyone dares to hurt you, I, Dishurtian, will kill any demon or god that dares to block my way." The first sentence was unusually gentle, with a trace of warmth, but the second sentence was quite cold. Regardless of whether he had that kind of ability or not, the family around him had become his most important reverse scale. Once touched, it would definitely arouse his monstrous anger. Something that had already happened once, he would definitely not allow it to happen again. Big Brother, Xiaobai is so blessed. Xiaobai raised her head and looked at Dishurtian, revealing traces of being touched. Pata! At this time, a soft sound broke the warmth in an instant. Looking over, one could see that there was a broken, withered branch under the girl's feet. Obviously, the sound just now came from above. Big Brother, Xiaobai will introduce you to my big sister. Big sister is very good to me. If it wasn't for Big Sister, Xiaobai wouldn't know when I would be able to see Big Brother. When Xiaobai saw the young lady, she hurriedly led Dishurtian to the young lady and introduced, "Big Brother, this is Big Sister Faye. Sister Faye, this is my brother R.A." A tender voice sounded between the girl and Dishurtian. Looking at the young girl in tattered clothes in front of him, a strange light flashed across Dishurtian's tiger-like eyes. He could see that the holes in her clothes were all caused by various kinds of thorns. It was not difficult to guess that this was the result of traveling through the forest for a long time. The shoes on his feet were so broken that he could no longer wear them. Thinking of Xiaobai's words, the gaze he looked at the young lady became much gentler. He only hated those immortal cultivators. He could see at a glance that the young lady in front of him did not have any cultivation and was just an ordinary person. Moreover, she was willing to go through so much trouble to send Xiaobai here. This kind of favor, no matter where he put it, was heavy. The most peculiar thing was that he noticed that this young lady seemed to have a natural affinity with nature. It could be said that she was close to nature without limit. That kind of aura made even him feel very comfortable. A sense of disgust arose. This king is Xiao Bai's biological brother. You can call me Di Shirtion. My name is Zi Fei. You are Xiao Bai's brother, so you can call me Zi Fei or Fei Fei. The young lady, Zi Fei, blinked her eyes, looked up and down Di Shirtion a few times, and said clearly. Hearing this, Di Shirtion nodded slightly and said, This time, you can send Xiao Bai back. I, Di Shirtion, owe you a favor. In the future, if there is anything, as long as it doesn't go against my principles and doesn't directly take my life, I will do it for you, even if it means going to the end of the world or going to the heavens or Huang Quan. Promises in Di Shirtian's heart definitely had a special weight. All along, he had been following the principle that nothing could stand without trust. As long as he said something, he would definitely do it. It could be said that he was a person who kept his promises. Therefore, it was also because of this that he never made promises easily. Once he made a promise, it meant that it was a kind of great binding. And now, he had made a precious promise to this young girl called Zi Fei. However, the current Zi Fei did not know how precious this promise was. In the future, on the Zijin continent, a storm would sweep up because of Di Shirtian's promise. She did not take it too seriously. She showed a sincere smile on her face, shook her head, and said, Big Brother Di, Zi Fei only accompanied Xiao Bai to find you because she likes you. You don't have to take it too seriously. She looked like she was willing to accept the credit. This young lady was indeed different from ordinary people. Sakura secretly nodded in his heart, but he still said, If you like Little White, then that's that. I'm Little White's elder brother. This time, you sent Little White back to my side. You deserve this favor. No matter if you accept it or not, I will never change my words. As he spoke, he changed the topic and looked at Xiao Bai, saying, Let's go, Xiao Bai. I will take you to our new home in the future. Miss Zi Fei, come with us. After Di Shirtian finished speaking, he immediately walked forward and led the way to the location of the Myriad Demon Valley. Sister Fei, Xiao Bai called out and jumped into Zi Fei's arms. Then it rubbed against her arms comfortably and blinked, saying, Sister Fei, let's follow them. Zi Fei nodded and followed Di Shirtian with Xiao Bai and Bai Hu in her arms. Di Shirtian also knew that Zi Fei was just an ordinary person, so he just walked slowly and did not walk too fast. Black Tiger's cultivation speed is really terrifying. A few months ago, it was just a demon, but in the blink of an eye, when we met again, it had already transformed into a demonic beast. I have never seen such a cultivation speed from the beginning to the end. What is so special about this Di Shirtian? Along the way, Bai Hu glanced at Di Shirtian from time to time. If one looked carefully, one could see that Bai Hu's eyes were full of shock. It was as if she had seen the most incredible thing in the world. Others might not be aware of it, but she was the one who understood it the most. In less than a year, a tiger who had never had any foundation in cultivation had actually advanced by leaps and bounds. Spiritual beast, spiritual monster, and now demonic beast. Such a speed could be said to be terrifying. To a demonic beast, a year was not enough for ordinary birds and beasts to develop spiritual intelligence, for spiritual beasts to open up a single meridian, and for spiritual monsters to open up a demonic residence. It could not be any shorter. However, in this short period of time, the black tiger in front of her had managed to do something that was absolutely impossible. How could the white fox not be surprised? It seems that my vision was so high that even I was surprised. Bai Hu doubted in her heart. She thought to herself and lay in the arms of the girl. As usual, she did not say a word. Brother, where are we going? Xiao Bai looked curiously at Di Shirtian in front of her. While looking around, she asked, Sister Fei and I went to our original cave to look for you, but we couldn't find you. Why did you move here? Indeed, she was very curious about this and did not understand why they had to leave Tiger Hill. Little sister, there are many things that I will tell you later. You just need to know that no one will dare to bully you in the southern barbarian lands. When we reach the Myriad Demon Valley, you will be the princess of the Myriad Demon Valley, and I will be the king of the Myriad Demon Valley. From now on, I will always protect you. I will never let you be wronged again. His voice was very firm. From a moment he saw Xiao Bai, he swore that he would never let her be in danger again. He would never allow his only family member by his side to be hurt in any way. Brother, what is the Myriad Demon Valley? The Myriad Demon Valley is the home that I have arranged for you. There, you are the princess. Brother, Xiao Bai also wants to become as strong as you. Brother, teach me. Along the way, Xiao Bai saw that Di Shirtian seemed to have endless things to say. One question after another came one after another, and Di Shirtian's patience also became surprisingly good at this moment. He answered all the questions, and a doting aura emerged from his body. Zi Fei, on the other hand, opened her eyes and pricked up her ears, carefully listening to the conversation between the brother and sister. From time to time, Di Shirtian would talk about some interesting things related to the southern barbarian lands. He also mentioned a little about the war in the southern barbarian lands. Even Bai Hu pricked up her ears and listened carefully. All the way forward, because Zi Fei was an ordinary person, Di Shirtian deliberately slowed down. According to the current schedule, it would take a day or two to reach the Myriad Demon Valley. Anyway, he was not in a hurry, so he did not use the wind controlling technique to lift them up. Flying with the wind on the ground, they could also observe the surrounding scenery as they walked. In addition, the brother and sister were reunited, so they always had endless things to talk about. It was very warm. Although Di Shirtian had a lot of questions in his heart, he did not ask at this time. After all, it was not very appropriate to ask outside. When they reached the Myriad Demon Valley, there would be plenty of opportunities to ask. Knowing the way, Di Shirtian and the others had already arrived in front of the passage outside the Myriad Demon Valley by the afternoon of the second day. The towering mountain lay in front of them. It blocked their view and hid the things behind the mountain. Little sister, this is the Myriad Demon Valley. We are here. Di Shirtian stopped and looked at Xiao Bai softly. Howl! In the sky, a high-pitched eagle cry pierced the sky. Looking up, a huge eagle was constantly hovering in the air. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 129. On the bald eagle's head, there was a cluster of golden feathers, which was very obvious. As it hovered in the air, it revealed an extremely aggressive aura. Its eyes were as sharp as arrows. Looking down at the ground, when it saw Di Shirtian, its eyes suddenly fell on the girl Zi Fei and instantly became fierce. Ow! A high-pitched eagle cry came from its mouth, and its whole body suddenly swooped down. Its two vigorous eagle claws were suffused with a dark metallic luster, and it fiercely pounced on Zi Fei. When Zi Fei saw this, she couldn't help but let out a hurried cry of alarm, and a trace of panic flashed across her face. Under the eagle's claws, she could clearly feel that if it were to land on her head, a few bloody scars would appear on her head in an instant, and she would lose her life in an instant. Eagle Kong, stop! This is an important guest invited by this king. Don't be unreasonable. When Di Shirtian saw this scene, two dignified gazes burst out from his eyes, exuding a strong majesty. He raised his claws, and the demon chi surged. In midair, a dark tiger claw was immediately condensed, and it quickly blocked in front of Ing Kong, colliding with the pair of eagle claws. On the spot, the power that erupted from the tiger claw blasted Ing Kong into the sky in one fell swoop. However, the tiger claw didn't contain too much power. The moment Ing Kong made his move, he was very clear that Ing Kong had misunderstood when he first saw him walking together with Zi Fei, a human, and thought that he was under the control of the other party, so he suddenly killed him. Miss Zi Fei, please don't be offended. This subordinate of mine is a little reckless and impulsive. When Di Shirtian blasted Eagle Kong away, he turned his head to Zi Fei and nodded slightly, apologizing. No, nothing. Zi Fei's face was still a little shaken. King, Eagle Kong hovered in the sky for a while, rolling up a gust of wind, and landed. He lowered his head, with a kind of anxiety on his body. Obviously, he was also worried about being punished by Di Shirtian for what had just happened. Yes. Sakura looked at Zifei. He didn't want to stay on this matter any longer. He nodded and said, "Go back to the valley immediately and inform Susu and Chihua. Tell them to come out and meet my sister." His voice was filled with an unquestionable tone. It was the majestic aura of a superior. The king's sister? Hearing this, Inkong's eyes clearly paused. He slightly raised his head and carefully scanned the surroundings. His sharp eyes immediately fixed on Little White, who was in Zifei's arms. There was only Little White, a white tiger nearby. Clearly, if it was the king's sister, only Little White was most suitable. Immediately, there was a hint of respect in his eyes as he looked at Whitey. "Yes, your majesty." Inkong nodded, flapped his wings, and soared into the sky, rushing toward the myriad demon valley. "Let's go. We'll also enter the valley." Di Shirtian turned his head to look at Zifei, nodded, and led the way to the passage. However, when he walked into the cave, his eyes paused on Baihu in Zifei's arms. There seemed to be a faint, strange light in his eyes, with a slightly profound look. The cave had 9 bends and 18 bends. Walking in the cave, one fork after another was placed in front of them. However, Sakura was, after all, very familiar with the road. He walked forward with ease and familiarity. Zifei also followed closely behind him and kept secretly sizing up the surrounding scenery. There was a look of curiosity in her eyes. "Miss Zifei, there is something I want to ask you. I don't know if you can answer me." While walking in the empty cave, Di Shirtian suddenly asked a very surprising question. His eyes suddenly lingered on Baihu in Zifei's arms several times. "Brother Di, what do you want to ask?" Zifei opened her eyes very curiously and looked at him. Obviously, she was a little confused and curious about Di Shirtian's sudden words. Di Shirtian said meaningfully, "I want to ask you, the Baihu in your arms, how did it come about? It seems to be very unusual." Quietly, no one noticed that when he asked this question, the muscles all over his body suddenly began to tighten, and there seemed to be a kind of hidden fear in his eyes. Of course, he hid this kind of expression very well, and the cave was very dark, so no one noticed it for a while. However, his gaze fell on the 2 snow-white tails behind Baihu, with a kind of indescribable color. Baihu has 2 tails. In his mind, a thought flashed quickly. Since his rebirth in his previous life, he was no stranger to the 4 great classical novels of Huaxia, and he had read the list of deification several times. Among them, Daji had a very deep impression in his mind. He clearly remembered that Daji was a 9-tailed celestial fox. Therefore, when he saw the 2 snow-white tails behind Baihu, his heart could not help but beat wildly. "You mean the little fox?" Zifei blinked her clear eyes and said, "I met her in the forest. When I saw her, the little fox was very pitiful. I don't know why she fainted under the tree. Now that she has woken up, she has not spoken." "Oh," Di Shirtian answered thoughtfully. However, he did not continue to ask. He just led the way in front of them. Even though the cave was long, it only took the time it took to brew a cup of tea to walk out of the cave. The sight before him suddenly opened up. A flat grassland, a dense forest, and a vertical waterfall. Surrounded by mountains on all sides, it was like a small world. There were mountains and water, and the fresh air rushed to their faces. "Greetings, your majesty." The moment they came out, they saw 5 tall figures standing in a row in front of them. The moment they saw Di Shirtian, they knelt down respectfully at the same time. Their voices were extremely loud and resounded in the valley. "Yes, this is this king's younger sister, Xiaobai." Di Shirtian looked at the little white tiger. At the same time, Xiaobai jumped out of Zifei's arms and came to Di Shirtian's side, looking at the 5 people in front of her curiously. "Greetings to Mississippi, Chihua, Baiyu," and the others greeted Xiaobai respectfully. From now on, Xiaobai is the princess of our myriad demon valley. "Yes, greetings to princess." In the blink of an eye, Xiaobai's identity had been confirmed here. In the future, she would be the princess of the myriad demon valley. It was foreseeable that in the valley, no one would dare to disrespect her. The change of identity made Xiao Bai feel very helpless. She moved closer to Di Shirtian in fear and said in a low voice, "Brother, these are—" As she spoke, she looked at the 5 tall demons in front of her. She seemed a little timid. "Haha, Xiao Bai, these are my most loyal subordinates." As Di Shirtian spoke, he looked at Bai Susu and said, "Susu, come. I'll leave Xiao Bai to you first. You two get to know each other. Then go to the valley and take a look around. Miss Zi Fei, you can also go with us." At this moment, his tone suddenly changed. He did not intend to bring Xiao Bai and the others to his cave abode immediately. Instead, he asked them to play in the valley first. Of course, there would be a twist later. As expected, after a pause, his tone changed again. He looked at Zi Fei and said, "Miss Zi Fei, I would like to talk to Baihu alone. Is that okay?" "Little fox." Zi Fei was a little surprised. She looked at Di Shirtian in confusion. Di Shirtian's eyes were deep. He said, "Don't worry, Miss Zi Fei. I don't want to harm Baihu by asking her to stay. I just have some things to ask her. I promise that I won't do anything to harm Baihu for no reason." After he finished speaking, he did not look at Zi Fei, but Baihu. "This okay?" Zi Fei hesitated for a moment, but after thinking about it, she did not refuse. She squatted down and gently put Baihu, who she had been carrying, on the ground. At this moment, Baihu's gaze was very strange. There was a faint sense of uneasiness in her eyes. Under such circumstances, Di Shirtian actually asked to be alone with her. This was definitely something she did not expect. Could it be that Di Shirtian has discovered my identity? But it shouldn't be. Although I am injured now, my aura has been completely restrained. Although he saw me last time at the Centipede Mountain, at that time, I show my human body after transforming. I never show my monster body in front of him. Why would he suddenly make such a request? Baihu had been silently observing Di Shirtian all the way down, and the surprise in her heart had never stopped. She had heard of the southern barbarian lands a long time ago. It was said among the demon clan that there were many ancient secrets buried in the southern barbarian lands. It was a place full of mysteries. Di Shirtian could survive in such a place, and even find a place like the Myriad Demon Valley. She could not help but sigh indescribably. Di Shirtian had changed even more. In a short period of time, he had more of a unique aura than before. Although this aura was very faint now, it still did not escape her sharp senses. Zi Fei and Little White, led by Susu and the others, walked into the valley. As they walked, they introduced the various things in the valley. In the same place, only Di Shirtian and Baihu were left standing face to face. They stared at each other. Baihu did not shrink back at all. Instead, she naturally sized him up. After a long while, in silence, Di Shirtian took a deep breath and said, "If I am not wrong, you should be the celestial fragrance fox king who saved my life at the Centipede Mountain." This sentence could be said to be earth-shattering and unusually direct. However, the tone in his words was rather certain. After he finished speaking, his eyes stared unblinkingly at the white fox. The white fox's body trembled slightly as the 2 snow-white foxtails behind her gently danced. A strange light flashed in her eyes as she asked, "How did you guess it?" Her voice was gentle, and it gave off an extremely comfortable feeling when it entered the ears. However, the meaning of this sentence had undoubtedly already acknowledged her identity and affirmed Sakura's guess. After she finished speaking, a trace of curiosity flashed in Baihu's eyes. What kind of changes will Baihu's arrival bring to the protagonist? This is an important plot that has been planned in the outline long ago. If you're interested, you can guess. If you guess correctly, you will get a prize. In addition, thank you to all the brothers who have rewarded me, voted for me, and recommended me. Thank you for your support. Chapter 130. If I remember correctly, we've only met twice. The first time was at the Tiger Hill mountain range. I handed the Imperial Sky treasure box to you for safekeeping and gave you a bottle of spirit-gathering pills as a reward. When talking about the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box, The gaze that the white fox looked at Sakura had a trace of profound charm. At the mention of the venerable heavenly treasure box, Indra's heart trembled. This matter was a thorn in his heart. The venerable heavenly treasure box was personally handed to him by the white fox, and she even promised to give him a bottle of spirit-gathering pills as a reward. Although back then, the white fox might have wanted to use him to conceal the existence of the venerable heavenly treasure box, he couldn't deny that the venerable heavenly treasure box was originally the white fox's private property. He had relied on the spirit-gathering pill to lay the foundation for his demonic cultivation. There was no doubt about it. It could be said that the white fox had an inseparable relationship with him being able to walk the path of demonic cultivation to where he was today. He admitted that he was wrong to open the Imperial Sky Treasure Box without permission, but he didn't regret it. He wanted power. He needed great power, and the Imperial Sky Treasure Box might contain the power he wanted. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to open the Imperial Sky Treasure Box and obtain the most precious divine melody of 7 sins, which could make him even stronger. He didn't regret it. However, when he faced Baihu, he felt ashamed. He felt as if he owed her something. After all, he took something that belonged to someone else. This was also something that Di Shirtian wouldn't deny. That's right. At that time, I was still a weak tiger cub. Di Shirtian nodded seriously and didn't deny it. Baihu's gaze softened. She continued, "The second time we met was at the Centipede Mountain. You saved my life that time." Di Shirtian nodded. His gaze was firm. As the saying goes, a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. You saved my life. I owe you one. He agreed without hesitation. Kindness was kindness. Hatred was hatred. In every living thing, as long as they had wisdom, they would naturally have their own persistence. Distinguishing between gratitude and grudges had always been the most firm principle in his heart. In this matter, there was no reason to deny it. He knew very well that if it were not for Baihu's help on the Centipede Mountain, he probably would have died at the hands of that nascent soul-stage old monster. What was even more tragic was that he might have been controlled by the beast-taming collar and enslaved by someone else. This debt was not small at all. I won't talk about the favor for now. However, I find it very strange. Logically speaking, the 2 times I appeared before you, I appeared in my human form. I have never revealed my true form. Why are you so sure that I am the heavenly fragrance Fox King? After Baihu finished speaking, she looked into Di Shirtian's eyes with great interest. She was extremely curious about this. Along the way, she had not spoken a single word and had stayed in Zi Fei's embrace the entire time. She did not do anything out of the ordinary. However, she was recognized by Di Shirtian with a single glance. Even though she was already a famous demon king in the world of cultivators, she could not help but find it strange. She did not know where she had given herself away. The fragrance on your body is very unique, Di Shirtian muttered. Fragrance? When Baihu heard this, a look of understanding appeared in her eyes. When she came back to her senses, she thought to herself, how could I forget this? Indeed, she recalled that she was known as the heavenly fragrance Fox King in the demon race. The word fragrance was used to describe the unique fragrance she emitted. This fragrance was very unique. It was naturally emitted when she was born. Anyone who smelled this unique fragrance would not be able to forget it for the rest of their lives. This had almost become a unique symbol of her. Although she had turned into her original form this time, her fragrance came from nature. It was her body fragrance. Under normal circumstances, she would not deliberately conceal it. Now that she had turned into her original form and had not recovered from her injuries, she did not have the extra energy to deliberately conceal this unique body fragrance. Therefore, along the way, this kind of body fragrance was constantly being emitted in all directions. Di Shirtian had a deep impression of this fragrance. When he first met it at Tiger Hill, it had been deeply imprinted in his mind. Therefore, when he met Whitey earlier, he smelled this fragrance. However, because of the battle with the Rat King, he did not pay too much attention to it. When he came back and smelled it again, he became suspicious. When he arrived at the Myriad Demon Valley, he was almost certain that this Baihu was definitely the heavenly fragrance Fox King that he had met twice. Of course, when he was almost certain it was impossible to say that he did not struggle in his heart. After all, the relationship between them was not simple. That's right. I guessed it from the fragrance. After speaking, Tion did not hesitate anymore. He looked at Baihu with a trace of doubt in his eyes. He changed the topic and asked, "However, if I remember correctly, you should be a demon king and have condensed a demon core." How could? Although he did not continue speaking, the meaning in his words was already very obvious. "Humph, it's all because of you." When the white fox heard this, she swept a glance at Sakura and said with slight indignation, "If it wasn't because I wanted to help you block that old cow nosed Qin Yun, I wouldn't have been entangled by him for an entire month. How would I have encountered those despicable old monsters and been besieged by them, causing me, a dignified demon king, to be heavily injured and return to my original body? It's all because of you that I ended up in this situation today." When Tion heard this, he was slightly stunned. He did not expect that Baihu's situation today, where she could only return to her original form, had something to do with him. It turned out that at that time, the white fox was curious about Sakura's astonishing cultivation speed and his wisdom that was far higher than that of ordinary demons. That was why she followed him along the way. And under that kind of scene on the Centipede Mountain, she didn't know what kind of mentality she had, or perhaps she didn't want such a weirdo to fall just like that, so she couldn't help but stop him. Of course, it was also because Tion carried the Imperial Sky treasure box with him. As soon as she did, Qin Yun's attention was completely focused on her. In an instant, he gave up on Tion and chased after them without hesitation. Originally, she thought that as long as she led Qin Yun away from them for a distance, she would chase him around in circles from a distance. When Tian's migration team was far away, she would then shake him off. But what she didn't expect was that although she had resolved the danger of Sakura, what happened after that was even more out of her expectations. Qin Yun actually had an extremely powerful flying magic treasure in her hands, the Azure Cloud Shuttle. Relying on the speed of this magic treasure, she chased closely behind, causing her initial thoughts to be instantly ruined. Later on, the chase continued for a month. Just think about it. One was a demon king, the other was a Yuaniing old monster. Once this chase started, how could their movements be hidden from the other experts? In the end, it was besieged by the three powerhouses on a mountain peak. After a fierce battle, the white fox could be said to have used all of its skills to forcefully withstand the heavy blows of the three powerhouses with the move Spirit Fox leaves its cave. Although it managed to escape, its body was also severely injured. It was so injured that it could not even maintain its original form, so it reverted back to its original form. It could be seen how heavy the injuries she suffered at that time were. This was also why she fainted and fell to the ground when Zifei saw her. Therefore, the reason why Baihu was so seriously injured this time was not unrelated to Tion. Although Baihu did not say it clearly, from the look in her eyes, Tion secretly pondered in his mind. He recalled the last time he saw her and thought about her tone. He guessed that it was probably related to him. After thinking about it, he looked at Baihu and said, "Since Miss Baihu has come to my myriad demon valley, you can recuperate here in peace in the future." As his voice fell, Tion looked at Baihu sincerely. This invitation was not blind. If the white fox had been in the myriad demon valley, Yi Fuqian would have been able to repay the favor. After all, the white fox's injuries might have been related to him. Secondly, the white fox was still an expert at the demon king level. During this period of time, if he could get closer to her when she recovered, it might be of great benefit to the myriad demon valley in the future. At least you still have some conscience. It was not in vain that I became like this because of you. Hearing this, Baihu could not help but feel happy. She thought to herself, if I can recuperate here, it will be an excellent place. Moreover, with Tion here, there should not be any danger. The spiritual qi is abundant. However, Baihu's eyes turned and she suddenly asked, "The Imperial Sky treasure box should still be in your hands, right?" There was an unusually cautious tone in her voice. Faintly, there was a trace of nervousness. Previously, she already knew that Di Shirtion had been cracking the Imperial Sky Treasure Box. She did not know whether the Imperial Sky Treasure Box had been cracked until now. Yes, Di Shirtion did not hide this matter. He nodded and said with certainty, without hesitation, "The Imperial Sky Treasure Box is still with me. If you want, I can return to the cave residence and give it to you now." "No need. I'll keep it with you for the time being." Surprisingly, Baihu did not immediately ask for it back. Instead, she continued to leave the Imperial Sky Treasure Box in Di Shirqian's hands. After she finished speaking, she paused and continued, "However, I want to recuperate and cultivate in the valley. I need a quieter cave residence." Di Shirqian nodded slightly and had no objection to this. "Brother." At this moment, a tender voice sounded from not far away. Looking in the direction of the voice, they saw a little white tiger running towards them quickly, followed by Chi Hua and the rest. "Brother, the valley is so big. Is this really our home in the future?" Little White returned to Di Shirqian's side, blinking its eyes and asking innocently, "Yes, the myriad demon valley will be your home in the future. Let's go. Brother will bring you to a place to live." Di Shirqian's gaze softened instantly. After he finished speaking, he led the way in front and walked towards his cave residence. Chihua and the rest followed closely behind. "From now on, I'll adjust the time for future updates to be before midnight. I can't stay up too late anymore." To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 131. The reunion with Little White immediately made the myriad demon valley livelier. Baihu and Zifei were both newcomers. Each of them was not ordinary. In order to settle them down, Di Shirqian asked Chi Hua and the others to open 2 caves around his cave. One was prepared for Baihu, and the other was prepared for Little White and Zifei. Because Little White did not want to be separated from Zifei, the 2 of them lived together. Of course, on the way, when Zifei and the others heard Baihu speak, they could not help but be surprised. They were not surprised that Baihu could speak, but that Di Shirqian could actually make Baihu speak. Baihu, who urgently wanted to recover her cultivation, immediately entered the cave after the cave was opened. She sealed the cave and entered seclusion. She wanted to recover her injuries to a better state in a short period of time. At this time, only Di Shirqian and Little White were in the cave. Outside, the sky gradually darkened. Bits of moonlight fell from the skylight and shone into the cave, bringing a lot of light to the dark cave. "Little White, weren't you captured by those immortal cultivators? What happened after you were captured? Why did you escape alone this time? Also, how are mother and second brother now?" Now that there is only the 2 of them, Di Shirqian did not beat around the bush and directly asked Little White all kinds of questions that had long existed in his heart. When talking about immortal cultivators, waves of cold light burst out from his eyes. To be honest, what he wanted to know the most now was which immortal sect had captured Little White and the others. He secretly swore in his heart, no matter who this immortal sect is, as long as they know, I, Di Shirqian, will destroy them in the future. At this time, the dense hatred and arrogance were completely revealed. Big Brother. When Little White heard this, crystal-clear tears fell from her eyes. She looked at Di Shirqian anxiously and said, "Big Brother, quickly go and save mother and second brother. Those bad people said that they would raise us into spirit beasts and sell us to other bad people. This is bad. Big Brother, you must save mother and second brother." Little White sobbed and told the story intermittently. However, Di Shirqian listened carefully and basically understood what she was trying to say. The more he listened, the colder and sharper the light in his 2 tiger eyes. Strong hatred filled his eyes. "So it's the Thousand Beasts sect." Di Shirqian said word by word, as if the words were squeezed out between his teeth. The purple king mark on his forehead emitted a bright purple flame, which was breathtaking. Monstrous anger crazily surged from his body. It turned out that the two immortal cultivators were disciples of the Thousand Beasts sect, which was extremely powerful in the immortal cultivation world. The Thousand Beasts sect had the word beast in its name. The sect was famous for controlling spirit beasts. The sect's spiritual treasure was a terrifying magic treasure called the Thousand Beast Banner. Legend said that this banner contained the essence of 10,000 beasts. Once it was controlled, it could summon the essence of 10,000 beasts to fight against the enemy. These essences, at the lowest level, were at the demonic beast level. If the power of this banner could be completely unleashed, it would have a terrifying power that could shock ghosts and gods. However, how much power could be unleashed was naturally determined by the user's own cultivation. It was definitely not something that an ordinary person could control. As for Little White and the others, they were captured by two disciples of the Thousand Beast sect and were fed a kind of elixir called the Spirit Beast Pill every day. This kind of Spirit Beast Pill was very strange. After eating it, it had the effect of increasing one's spiritual intelligence and spirituality. However, there was an extremely terrifying side effect. That was, once consumed, the spirit beast would not be able to transform for the rest of its life and would only be able to maintain its original form, which was the appearance of a wild beast. Moreover, while consuming the spirit beast pill, there would be a cultivator at the side, continuously chanting a strange incantation. After listening to it, the spirit beast would be in a daze and become drowsy. It was extremely strange. This incantation was called the Spirit Governing Incantation. It was the foundation of the Thousand Beasts sect. It could be said that it was extremely important. After being cleansed by this Spirit Governing Incantation every day, Little White realized that the White Tiger Mother had actually started to become rather irritable. She often did not recognize her second brother in her. This situation made Little White rather afraid. After eating the Spirit Beast pill, her intelligence and spirituality increased greatly. She also thought that if they continued to wait, they might become like the White Tiger Mother when they grew up. Therefore, the little White Tiger actually took advantage of the sudden change in the Thousand Beasts sect and sounded the alarm to escape to the foot of the Thousand Beasts Mountain with unbelievable luck. It also coincidentally met Z Fei, which was why it was able to come all the way to Chertion. It could be said that there was too much luck involved in this. Otherwise, Little White would not have been able to find this place at all. The Thousand Beasts sect? I still advise you not to easily find trouble with the Thousand Beasts sect. Otherwise, with your current ability, you will only cause another demonic beast to appear on the Thousand Beasts Mountain. The Thousand Beasts Mountain is so terrifying that even I did not dare to go there in my heyday, unless, just as Chertion was filled with anger and was about to explode, a gentle voice suddenly interrupted. Looking over, they saw Snow White by who walking towards them step by step outside the cave abode. Two snow white tails danced gently behind her, and a unique fragrance assaulted their noses. Who else could it be but the heavenly fragrance Fox King? Bai Hu was originally in the cave abode next door when she suddenly sensed a torrential anger surging into the sky and alarmed her, which was why she appeared here. Taking a deep breath and smelling that strange fragrance, Chertion's originally raging heart suddenly calmed down. It was as if this fragrance had a special effect of calming the mind and actually slowly calmed his emotions. Unless what? Chertion looked at Bai Hu with a torch-like gaze. He knew that there was definitely more to her words. Bai Hu calmly walked in front of him and glanced at him indifferently. She said, "Unless you can cultivate to become a great demon and have the ability to move unhindered in the purple gold mainland, then you can possibly go up the Thousand Beast Mountain. Otherwise, with your current demonic beast ability, not to mention you, even if there were 100 more of you, it would definitely not end well. If you want to go, you must at least have the ability of a demon king. If you can reach the peak of a demon king, you may be able to achieve your goal. Spiritual beast, demon king, demon king, demon king, great demon. Step by step, There was an incomparably huge gap between each level. And with every step forward, it would be 10 times or even 100 times stronger than before. For a normal demon, if a spiritual beast wanted to become a demon, it would take at least 1 to 2,000 years. And to become a demon king, it was even more difficult to estimate. It would take at least another 1 to 2,000 years. As for a great demon, without talent, even if you had a long time, you would only be able to reach the demon king level. Tirtian also knew a little about this from the inheritance, but he was not clear about the details. However, this did not stop him from making all sorts of guesses. Hearing Baihu's words, he could not help but be stunned. Immediately, a strong desire burst forth from his eyes. A desire to become stronger continuously surged. Admitting defeat was definitely not in his character. No matter how difficult the future was, it would not be able to stop his belief. I want to know the situation of the Thousand Beasts sect. Tirtian stared at Baihu's eyes like torches. For some reason, when Baihu saw this kind of gaze, her eyes unconsciously moved away a little. She said, "The Thousand Beasts sect is not something you can understand now. The more you know, the worse it will be for you. In short, with your current strength, even if you add the entire Demon Valley, or even the Southern Barbarian, to the Thousand Beasts sect, it will be a piece of cake. It can be easily destroyed. In my opinion, it's best for you to work hard and improve your own cultivation. With your talent, it's not difficult to cultivate to the Demon King level." As she said that, she also thought so in her heart. With his talent, it actually took him less than a year to break the norm from a spiritual beast to a demonic beast. If he was a demonic beast, how long would it take to condense an inner core and really become a demon? To be honest, she was really a little curious about this. After Tirtian heard this, the light in his eyes kept flickering. Suddenly, he looked at Baihu with a determined gaze and asked, "Do you know how to play the zither?" "Zither skills?" This unexpected question caused the white fox to have a trace of doubt in its heart. "Yes, I want to learn how to play the zither." In Sakra's tone, there was a kind of unwavering belief. Zither, learn the zither. Other demons might really need time to hone their own cultivation. Perhaps thousands of years, perhaps tens of thousands of years, they would be able to reach the legendary Great Demon, possessing the power to overturn rivers and seas. But he could not wait. According to what Xiao Bai said about the Thousand Beasts sect, he did not know what would happen to White Tiger Mother and the others if he delayed for decades or centuries. What kind of terrible experience would they suffer? Moreover, he had the capital that other demons did not have, the Seven Sins divine melody. Using the seven emotions as the music, he could make heaven and earth weep and all living things grieve. He believed that if the Seven Sins divine melody really had the magical power described in the ancient scroll, he was confident that he could use it to fight against the Thousand Beasts sect. But now, the only obstacle in front of him was the zither. As long as he learned how to play the zither, he would be able to lay the foundation to play the Seven Sins divine melody. He must learn how to play the zither. "I don't know how to play the zither." Baihu was slightly stunned, but still shook her head. She was a demon king and usually spent most of her time cultivating. How could she have the time to learn how to play the zither? This was a relatively normal thing. If you want to learn how to play the zither, you can only learn on the mainland. It should not be difficult to learn in the secular human world. The white fox asked curiously, "If I still had my cultivation, it wouldn't be difficult for me to help you capture a zither player with superb skills, even if I were to go to a nearby town. However, I can't do that now." In her opinion, she could just directly find a zither player. It would not be troublesome at all. Unfortunately, it was quite troublesome now. "Of course, if you can tell me why you want to learn how to play the zither, I might be able to help you." A look of interest flashed across the white fox's eyes. While it had given up on hope, it had given up on hope. "I'm slowly adjusting. All the updates will be placed before 12 p.m. When I'm done adjusting, I'll fulfill my previous promise. I don't want to be a night owl. It's too tiring to stay up all night." Chapter 132. From Baihu's words, it seemed like there was a way to help. However, it also revealed that she was curious as to why Di Shirtian suddenly wanted to learn the Guqin. You really have a way? Sakura's pupils suddenly contracted. After knowing the news of White Tiger Mother and the others, and knowing how powerful the Thousand Beast sect was, his desire to become stronger emerged once again. Moreover, it was even more intense than before. The only method that could allow him to possess such shocking power was undoubtedly the Seven Sin Divine Melody. Plus, before he knew how to play the Seven Sins Demonic Guqin, his rough movements were comparable to those of a completion-level cultivator. If he learned how to play the Guqin and played a complete song, what kind of scene would that be? He was confident that with this song, he would be able to defeat the Wansho sect. Do you really have a way? Di Shirtian muttered to himself for a moment. After carefully observing her for a moment, he asked. Baihu blinked and said, "You can choose not to believe me. However, I think that with your current level of cultivation, to reach the peak of a demonic beast and condense an inner core is not something you can do in a short amount of time. If you want to wait for yourself to transform, I'm afraid it will take a long time. I'm just curious as to why you want to learn the Guqin." Indeed, Sakura himself was also very clear that if he wanted to wait for the transformation, it was definitely not something that could be done in 1 or 2 months. Even if he had already absorbed the bodies of thousands of cultivators in his own demon mansion, as long as he completely refined them, it would not be too difficult for him to truly reach the peak of a demon beast and even condense an inner core. However, if he was in a hurry to learn the Guqin, he could not wait for a year or 2. Di Shirtian took a deep breath and said, "Actually, it's nothing. It's just that my natal instrument is a jade Guqin. The power of the jade Guqin can only be fully unleashed if I know how to play music." As he spoke, his mind flickered. A sparkling and translucent white light burst out from his body and landed in front of him. Through the gentle jade light, one could see a jade-colored 9-string zither placed in front of him. On the body of the zither, there was a mysterious color. The jade light that it emitted carried a trace of demonic aura. It gave people the urge to rush forward and embrace her as soon as they saw her. Ding dong, ding dong. The 9 strings naturally gave off a clear and melodious sound that reverberated in the cave. When one heard the sound of the zither, it was as if the various desires in one's heart were magnified many times over. Strands of black gas appeared from the surroundings and flowed into the zither along with the sound of the zither. It was extremely mysterious. You actually have a natal demon artifact, and it's even a jade zither. This zither, almost as soon as Di Shirtian opened his mouth, Baihu's eyes were filled with surprise. A natal demon weapon was also a natal immortal weapon. For the same reason, as long as you had the materials, anyone could refine it. However, there were not many in the demon clan who knew how to refine it. Moreover, it was even more difficult to collect the materials. Generally, the demon clan who had not transformed would not refine such a natal demon weapon. Even for her, she only had one set. Di Shirtian could actually refine it when he was still a demon beast. She could not help but be surprised. Moreover, when the 7 Sins demonic zither came out, she realized that this zither was definitely not ordinary. It could absorb the black gas on its own. From the black gas, she had a very evil feeling. Naturally, there was a kind of fear. Moreover, when the sound of the zither was heard, she felt that her emotions actually fluctuated more violently. If it were not for her profound cultivation, she was afraid that it would have caused some bad situations. In general, almost in an instant, she was sure that this jade zither was definitely not an ordinary demon artifact. Seeing the body of the jade zither, Baihu's gaze suddenly froze. Her heart was instantly filled with surprise, and wild waves surged in her heart. The body of the zither was actually made from the piece of jade embryo left behind after being struck by the lightning of the heavenly tribulation. Back then, when Di Shirtian obtained this piece of jade embryo, she was a person who witnessed it with her own eyes. Naturally, she was very clear that a jade embryo that could withstand the lightning without being damaged was definitely not an ordinary item. Back then, she did not seize it immediately because she felt that the power originally contained in the jade embryo seemed to have been destroyed by the heavenly tribulation and had lost its spirituality. At best, it was a piece of peerless jade in the secular world. However, she did not expect that Tion would use this piece of jade embryo as a material to refine the body of the jade zither. In the jade zither, she could faintly feel a kind of demonic aura reverberating inside. Obviously, even if the spirituality in the jade embryo was completely lost, it was still definitely an excellent material to refine a demonic zither. With Baihu's insight, it was naturally impossible for her not to see that the quality of the jade zither in front of her was already a top-grade magic artifact. It was only because of the owner's cultivation that it could not be promoted. Its power was not the slightest bit inferior to any magic treasure. Using the shape of the jade embryo to refine a zither was the most suitable. Moreover, she also felt a kind of extremely strange power in the zither. This kind of power was something that she had never come into contact with before. Tian's body is really full of mysteries. Baihu secretly muttered in her heart. Looking at Tian, she said, "So your natal demonic artifact is actually a zither. To use a zither as a tool, you indeed need to understand music and the art of the zither to be able to completely unleash the power of the zither itself." As she said that, she paused, then continued, "I really don't know how to play the zither. However, to learn the zither, the best magic treasure is to enter the human world to learn." Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. "With your current appearance, it will be very difficult for you to enter the human world," Baihu said unhurriedly. "Of course, as I said before, as long as you tell me the reason, I will help you solve this problem." Her expression showed that she had a card up her sleeve, as if she really had the confidence to solve this problem. "How do you solve it?" Tian naturally followed up with a question. Baihu blinked, and a strange light appeared in her eyes. She said, "My Fox clan has a secret technique called the mystic moon shape-shifting technique. As long as you cultivate it, you can use this secret technique to transform into a human form even if you have not formed an inner core. Although you cannot always maintain your human form, it is enough to integrate into the human world." That's right. What Baihu said could be said to be a secret technique of the Fox clan. It was very unique and had always been kept very strictly and had never been passed on to outsiders. For example, in the legend of the Fox clan, intelligent foxes were called fox immortals by humans. This was because most foxes admired those scholars among humans and fell in love with these scholars. It was very poignant and beautiful. Many stories were widely circulated. It brought many poignant and beautiful legends to the human world. In fact, most of the foxes who fell in love with the scholars were not those who had formed an inner core with their cultivation. None of them had truly transformed into demons. Indeed, once the Fox clan could transform into demons, their minds would have become steady, and it would not be easy to move them and shake their beliefs. Take Baihu, for example. If a weak scholar appeared in front of her, she would probably turn her nose up at him and would not even take a few glances. In Baihu's heart, she had long determined that if one wanted to become her husband, he would at least have to be stronger than her. Only the strong had the possibility of attracting her heart and mind. Only the strong could subdue her and provide her with a pair of strong shoulders. Otherwise, the possibility of moving her heart was really too little. As for those fox immortals who left legends in the human world, needless to say, were naturally those little foxes who had specially cultivated the mystic moon shape-shifting technique. Their minds were not mature yet, and they were curious about the outside world. With the magic of the secret technique, they could transform into human form and enter the human world, leaving behind all kinds of poignant and beautiful legends. However, their fates were all quite tragic. After all, although the secret technique was magical, it could not increase their cultivation. Each of them had not even formed an inner core. If they entered the outside world like this, one could imagine their fates. However, this could not deny the magic of the mystic moon shape-shifting technique. It was definitely a shocking, secret technique. Bai Hu was almost the strongest in the Fox clan, so how could she not know this secret technique? Moreover, the mystic moon shape-shifting technique had the same magical effect on the other demon clans. Regardless of whether it was a bird or a beast, as long as they cultivated, they could transform into human form and enter the human world without waiting to form an inner core. Therefore, if Di Shirtian also cultivated the secret technique, he could also transform into human form in advance. Mystic Moon Shape-Shifting Technique. The light in Di Shirtian's eyes suddenly became blazing. He stared at Bai Hu without blinking and said, "Can this secret technique really let me transform in advance? Won't my identity be discovered when I enter the human world?" He originally thought that he would have to wait until he formed an inner core before he could transform. Now that there was such an accident, he could not help but be concerned. What he lacked most was time. Otherwise, he would not care much about whether he transformed earlier or later. He would not think that as long as he transformed and had the appearance of a human, he would be a human. In terms of identity, he had a very clear understanding. A demon was a demon. He would not stop being a demon just because he transformed and had the appearance of a human. Although he was a human in his previous life, he did not feel that there was anything wrong with being a demon in this life. Furthermore, demons were born before humans. Demons would only live longer than humans. Transforming into human form was just a body that was more suitable for cultivation. That's right. As long as you cultivate the secret technique of the Fox clan, you can transform in advance. However, when they were confirming, Bai Hu suddenly said a turning point. Usually, after however, there would be a complete transformation. As expected, after a pause, she continued, "After all, the mystic moon shape-shifting technique is not the true transformation of the inner core. After going through the baptism of the transformation heavenly tribulation, there is a flaw in the transformation heavenly tribulation. There is a taboo in the transformation heavenly tribulation. One cannot always maintain a human form." When Di Shirtian heard this, he did not find it strange. If a mere transformation secret technique could completely transform, then the demon clan in the world would not need to go through the heavenly tribulation. In the world, it was impossible for such a heaven-defying thing to exist. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 133. What's the taboo? Di Shirtian's eyes flickered quickly, and he asked in a deep voice. Bai Hu did not hide. She nodded and said, "The dark moon shape refining technique relies on the power of the mysterious yin in the sun and moon. Therefore, every time the moon is full, the power of the dark moon shape refining technique will automatically dissipate, and it can no longer maintain the shape. It will return to its original form at the first moment. Secondly, it's taboo to use the peach wood. If it's 1,000-year-old peach wood, once it touches it, its shape will also collapse. Thirdly, Bai Hu counted them one by one. There were still quite a lot of taboos. It could be seen that it was not a regular transformation tribulation to condense an inner elixir. If one wanted to transform, it would be the sky-stealing technique. After all, there would be various restrictions. Only when one really passed the transformation tribulation could he truly transform between the original form and the human body. However, when Di Shirtian heard these, he didn't feel that it was too big of a problem. He went to the human world just to learn the zither. He did not need other things. At most, he would immediately return to the southern barbarian lands after learning it. The most important thing is that once you use the dark moon shape refining technique to transform into a human body, it will be difficult to hide your demon aura. Ordinary people may not feel it, but for cultivators with a little common sense, they will find out that you are a demon. So, do you still want to learn it? After Baihu finished, she did not say anything more. She quietly stared at his eyes, waiting for his answer. Yes, why not? Tian said resolutely without hesitation. As long as he could learn the zither, nothing else mattered. The seven sins divine melody was a treasure, and the zither was the key to open the treasure. Naturally, the sooner he got the key, the more relieved he would be, and the sooner he could familiarize himself with playing the melody. When Baihu heard it, a faint smile appeared in her eyes. She suddenly said, "You want to learn it, but the dark moon shape refining technique is the supreme secret skill of my fox tribe. Why should I teach it to you? You have to know that even in my clan, not everyone has the opportunity to obtain this secret technique. Give me a reason." After saying that, he sized up Sakura's body with great interest, appearing to be very interested. Indeed, this secret technique was an extremely useful secret technique to the Fox clan, or rather, to the entire Yao clan. Even the Fox clan, not everyone knew it. Teaching it to an outsider was indeed a problem that could not be avoided. Tian's eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak immediately. Xiaobai had been listening attentively from the side. He was sensible and did not interrupt. Now that things had come to this, he could not help but look at Baihu with a pleading gaze. He said immaturely, "Sister Baihu, please help my brother." "Little White, say no more." Tian interrupted Little White's pleading and raised his head to look at Baihu with a stern look. "As long as you're willing to teach me, I can promise to do one thing for you in the future. As long as it doesn't go against my principles, I won't hesitate even if I have to go through fire and water." His tone was very cautious. Promises were not made lightly, and promises had to be kept. To him, a promise was definitely a very important price to pay. Therefore, there was an extremely solemn aura in his expression. "Okay, just a promise." Unexpectedly, the white fox easily agreed. Looking at its appearance, it seemed that it was waiting for Sakura to open his mouth to say this sentence. After he finished speaking, a meaningful smile appeared in his eyes. There seemed to be an indescribable playfulness vaguely. Without much nonsense, after agreeing, the white fox immediately told him the cultivation method of the mystic moon refining technique. Hearing this, Indra had the foundation of cultivation, and, on the path of demon cultivation, he could be considered to have officially embarked on the journey. In the white fox's narration, he also slowly understood the mystery contained in this secret technique. It turned out that the mystic moon shape-shifting technique was to use the mystic power of the moon to inject it into one's entire body through a special method, so that one could transform into a human form. Moreover, this process required 9 days. 9 was the number of extremes. During these 9 days, one had to bathe in the moonlight and be baptized. It was magical. After teaching, Baihu glanced at Tian and said, "Remember, you owe me a promise." After saying that, she turned around and walked out of the cave residence. She was not worried at all that he would not fulfill his promise. This was also her understanding of Tian's nature. The observation when she was in the Tiger Hill Mountains was not in vain. It could be said that she had witnessed Tian's growth and had a general understanding of his temperament. In addition, after a period of observation after meeting him this time, she had long determined that he was definitely a demon who kept his promises. Therefore, she was not worried that he would not fulfill his promise. She left the cave with peace of mind and returned to her own cave residence. "Xiaobai, although you're now back with me, in the myriad demon valley, you are the princess here and no one will bully you. However, you can't always be under my protection. I can't always be with you and protect you. Therefore, I plan to teach you the tiger roaring technique, the demon cultivation method of my tiger tribe." Tian watched Baihu leave. He did not immediately practice the mystic moon shape-shifting technique given by Baihu. Instead, he said to Xiaobai with a slightly serious tone, "As long as you work hard to practice, in the future, you will also have great power." Xiaobai was his sister. Naturally, it was a matter of course to protect her. Di Shirtian himself also enjoyed the feeling of being able to care for his family as a brother. However, he did not always protect Xiaobai forever. In this world, there were too many experts. In the southern barbarian lands, he could protect Little White. But in the future, if he was not by her side, who would protect Little White? The only strength was her own strength. This was a strength that no one could deprive her of. Moreover, if he did not cultivate, his life would only be a few decades or 100 years. He did not want to be separated from his family because of this. This decision had already appeared in his mind as soon as he saw Xiaobai. Xiaobai blinked and asked seriously, "If I cultivate, can I go with you to save Mom and second brother in the future?" "Of course." Di Shirtian nodded without hesitation and said, "As long as you can become stronger in the future, I will take you with me. Otherwise, you will wait for me in the valley." Xiaobai wants to cultivate. "Brother, quickly teach Xiaobai how to cultivate." Xiaobai's eyes lit up as she cried out excitedly. Di Shirtian looked at Xiaobai with gentle eyes. Without hesitation, he explained the tiger roar technique to Xiaobai. The tiger roar technique was the only technique he had inherited from his bloodline. It could be said that it was the most suitable technique for tigers to cultivate. It was the best technique for laying the foundation. With the experience of cultivation, one's understanding of the technique would be deeper. Although the explanation was short, it was quite practical, to the point. He also used his demon essence to help Xiaobai open the first meridian in her body, wash her muscles and refine her marrow, and lay the foundation for her cultivation. He also took out various pills obtained from cultivators, such as the yellow bud pill, the marrow cleansing pill, the qi nourishing pill, and so on. All kinds of low-level pills that could be taken at the qi refinement stage. The medicinal properties of these pills were far inferior to the spirit-gathering pill that Bai Hu had given him. However, for Xiaobai, who had just started cultivating, it was still very beneficial. It could increase the speed of her cultivation. He also took out the monkey spirit wine that he had always kept with him. This was a spirit wine that was even better than the spirit-gathering pill for cultivation. All kinds of resources were given to Xiaobai regardless of the cost. She was his only sister. How could Di Shirtian be stingy with her? He couldn't wait to give all the good things to Xiaobai. Of course, after knowing that Bai Hu was injured, he also gave her 3 bottles of monkey spirit wine. With the power of the spirit wine, it had an extraordinary ability to heal injuries. Di Shirtian, who was eager to learn the art of the zither, did not hesitate. On the second night, he began to absorb the mysterious yin energy according to the mystic moon refining technique. He hoped that he could successfully transform 9 days later. In Lingnan City, Li Ji, the head of the Li family, placed his left hand on the armrest of the chair beside him and turned it into a claw. His hand pulled a piece of iron wood from the chair. He gritted his teeth as if he was going to break them. His face was very ugly, as pale as a sheet of white paper. In the hall, a few members of the Li family, who were also pale, were also sitting with ugly expressions. However, the fear in their eyes, as if the sky was falling, could be clearly seen. Li Ji looked around, took a deep breath, and finally spat out a sentence. "Everyone, the Ancestor's soul tablet is broken." This sentence was like the collapse of the sky. The entire hall was filled with an incomparably oppressive aura. Soul tablet. This was an immortal cultivator who fused a strand of his divine sense into a unique jade tablet, turning it into a unique soul tablet. If the soul tablet was in good condition, it meant that the immortal cultivator was safe. If it was in good condition, it meant that the immortal cultivator was very safe. But if it was suddenly broken, it meant that the owner of the soul tablet had died unexpectedly. Now, the soul tablet of the Li family ancestor, Li Kanglin, had been broken into countless pieces. There was no trace of light on the jade tablet. This cannot be more obvious. The Li family ancestor had fallen. For the Li family to be able to stand tall in the cultivation world, Li Kanglin was of the utmost importance. If they didn't have the support of a core formation cultivator, the entire Lingnan city would not have been able to survive. Without the deterrence of a powerful cultivator, who would listen to them. It could be imagined how important this was. Our Lee family is now in the most dangerous situation. Whether or not we can survive will depend on you all. The news of the old ancestor's death must not be leaked. Li Jiqiang calmed himself down. His eyes shone as he said, "Therefore, I have decided that in the next 3 years, the elders of the family will take turns to enter seclusion. If anyone shows signs of breaking through to the core formation stage, the family will use all of our resources to nurture them. We must have another core formation cultivator appear in the family in the shortest time possible. Otherwise, our Li family and the entire Lingnan city will be completely annihilated." To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 134. A strong cultivator was the most important factor in a clan's prosperity. The reason why Lingnan City could exist was because the Li clan had a core formation stage ancestor. Anyone who wanted to cause trouble in the city had to consider the consequences of angering a core formation stage cultivator. In addition, this wasn't the real immortal cultivation realm. It was just at the edge of the immortal cultivation realm. Most of the people here were rogue cultivators. Some small clans wouldn't dare to provoke a powerful clan like the Li clan. But now is different. If news of Li Songlan's death were to spread, many clans who wanted to use the Li clan as a stepping stone would be more than happy to destroy the Li clan or chase them out of Lingnan City. Under these circumstances, it was definitely not the time for a clan to wallow in grief. The only way was to raise another core formation stage cultivator in the shortest amount of time possible and seal off the news of Li Songlan's death. Only then would they have enough time to recover. Otherwise, they wouldn't be far from their downfall. Li Jiji was the current head of the clan because of the Li clan's weakness. How could he not understand this? Therefore, regarding Li Songlan's death, he only told the most trusted elders in the clan. This way, not only could he seal off the news, but he could also use this matter to stimulate the clan's potential. By stimulating these foundation establishment stage elders, they would be able to move forward courageously and break through the bottleneck of the foundation establishment stage, condense their golden core, and enter the core formation stage. This way, they would be able to overcome this crisis at this critical juncture. Yes, Patriarch. The elders all responded with a serious expression. They all grew up in the Li clan and were the direct bloodline of the Li clan. They all knew that if the Li clan fell, they wouldn't have a good ending. Everyone, our Li clan has reached its most critical juncture. The death of our ancestor will be the clan's top secret from today onwards. No one is allowed to mention it in front of outsiders. To outsiders, just say that our ancestor is in closed-door cultivation and is preparing to break through to the nascent soul stage. If even a single word about our ancestor's death is leaked out, Li Jiji coldly looked around. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he said, "Then our Li clan will do everything in our power to kill him and destroy his soul." Yes, Patriarch, we won't reveal anything about this. The people here were all core members of the Li family. They were all elders and had grown up in the Li family. Their loyalty to the Li family was unquestionable. When they heard the news of Li Kanglin's death, they knew that the Li family's most difficult time had arrived. Whether they could survive or not would depend on whether a core formation cultivator could be born in the next few years before the news of their ancestor's death spread. If they could, the Li family would still be able to survive despite the huge losses. It was only a matter of time before he regained his strength. If they couldn't, then the Li family would completely fall from the position of a first-rate family and become a second-rate world, or even a last-rate family. These were all extremely likely things. All right. In the next few years, all of the Li clan's resources will be given to you without limit. As long as we can produce a single core formation cultivator, our Li clan will continue to exist. Li Ji didn't say much. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and motioned for everyone to leave. After the others had left, Li Ji was the only one left in the hall. He sat paralyzed in his seat as he stared blankly at his outstretched right hand. In the palm of his right hand, there were many tiny pieces of jade. These pieces of jade were all broken. If they were pieced together, a complete soul tablet could be obtained. This broken soul tablet naturally belonged to none other than Li Kanglin. Now, these broken jade pieces no longer had the slightest bit of light. They were as dim as stones, and their spirituality had long been exhausted. Even if it was pieced together, it wouldn't have the slightest effect. Looking at the fragments in his hand, Li Ji's eyes suddenly burst with a dense hatred that couldn't be dissolved. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. Southern Barbarian Demon Clan, Demonic Tiger, it's all because of you that my Li clan suffered such a heavy blow. If my Li clan recovers one day, we will definitely take revenge. We will definitely take revenge. Even if the losses are great, we will completely raze the Southern Barbarian to the ground. Li Ji shouted with a ferocious expression. It was obvious how much hatred he had in his heart. Even if 3 rivers were poured in, it wouldn't be able to be vented. Chu country's imperial capital, Chu family's manor. The Chu family's patriarch, who was also the Chu country's monarch, Chu Tianxing, was standing opposite a man shrouded in a black fog. Although this man was standing, he could respectfully bow in front of Chu Tianxing to show his respect. Black Prison, you're saying that the old fart of the Li clan, Li Kanglin, has already fallen the Southern Barbarian? I remember that old fart Li Kanglin has been in seclusion ever since he reached the core formation stage. He wouldn't come out unless something major happened. To think that he would fall in the Southern Barbarian. Chu Tianxing exuded a dignified aura. Although it was just a normal question, the pressure in his words was naturally revealed. Black Prison spoke respectfully with an indescribable hoarseness in his voice. This hoarseness was quite strange, making it impossible for others to detect the slightest bit of emotion in his words. It was as if he was a piece of cold iron without any emotions. Hearing this, a chill unconsciously spread from the bottom of one's heart. Patriarch, ever since you told us to pay attention to the Southern Barbarian, I personally went there to observe the strength of the demon clans in the Southern Barbarian. I wanted to use it in the future. However, before I entered the Southern Barbarian, I unexpectedly saw Li Kanglin rush into the Southern Barbarian on his floating cloud boat. He never came out again. Black Prison's hoarse voice was very stiff, but he still continued. At that time, there were continuous thunder in the Southern Barbarian. If I'm not mistaken, there should be a demon beast undergoing the demon tribulation in the transformation stage. I didn't dare to approach easily and could only watch from afar. However, I saw that the demon beast kings in the Southern Barbarian really had strength that far surpassed that of a demon beast. Even if they fought against a core formation cultivator, they would be evenly matched in a short period of time. Now, there's probably a demon beast in the Southern Barbarian who has condensed an inner core. I sincerely request that the Southern Barbarian be resolved as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will definitely become difficult to deal with in the future. When Black Prison said the last sentence, his eyes burst with cold, killing intent. There was a ruthless look in his eyes. No, unexpectedly, Chu Tianxing shook his head and denied. Right now, all the resources in the clan are placed in the heavenly demon secret realm in less than 3 years. Even if the Southern Barbarian's strength increases greatly, its importance is absolutely not comparable to the operation in 3 years. In these 3 years, the entire Chu clan must put the trip to the secret realm first. Everything else can be temporarily put aside. There was an unquestionable firmness in his voice. It was a tone that absolutely could not be changed. Yes, when Black Prison heard this, he answered without a trace of hesitation. Chu Tianxing looked at Black Prison and nodded. Black Prison, in these 3 years, seized the time to train the Black Prison guards. Legend has it that in the heavenly demon secret realm, there's a supreme treasure called the 10,000 Celestial Pagoda. This pagoda contains the secrets of the heavens and earth. As long as you obtain it, you can become one of the most powerful forces in the world. No matter whether it is true or not, this pagoda must be in our hands. Even if we can't obtain it, we must not let others obtain it. This rumor had actually been circulating in the Zijin continent for a long time. It was said that this pagoda was the true treasure of the hidden territory. If one obtained it, they would be able to break through to a realm that no one could match. Thousands of years ago, there was a small cultivator who was only at the foundation establishment stage. By chance, he entered the pagoda. When he came out, his cultivation base had broken through to the nascent soul stage. After that, within 1,000 years, he broke through several barriers and passed the tribulation to become an immortal. This matter was widely circulated in the continent and could not be more true. Therefore, as long as the heavenly demon's secret realm opened again, it would stir up a boundless storm and thousands of huge waves. Countless cultivators would rush into the secret realm, hoping that they would be the next lucky person. Unfortunately, in the years that followed, no one else had such a fortuitous encounter. Even so, the people who rushed to the pagoda were still as numerous as carps crossing the river. There were many of them. Yes, the black prison guards have basically been trained. As long as the master gives the order, even if it is a mountain of swords or a sea of flames, the black prison guards will rush forward without hesitation. Moreover, the black prison absolute formation has been practiced to the later stages. As long as one is enveloped by the absolute formation, even a nascent soul old monster will die in the formation. The murderous intent in Black Prison's eyes was awe-inspiring. The meaning in his words was enough to freeze one's heart and make one completely dumbfounded. To be able to kill a nascent soul old monster, such a formation must be extremely terrifying. That's good. You may leave. Yes, Black Prison answered. The black fog fluctuated, and he disappeared silently from the hall. The scene was as if he had never appeared. It was simply terrifying to the extreme. On the waterfall of the myriad demon valley, there was a huge reef. On the rock, a huge black tiger stood on it. From his body, traces of black demon chi were constantly emitted from the pores of his body. Outside his body, they condensed and did not disperse, forming a black demon fog that completely covered his entire body. The demon fog fluttered with the wind, and Di Shirtian's figure was faintly discernible in it. It was very strange. Huff! A dull sound was heard in front of him along with his breathing. His inhalation and exhalation had a strange rhythm. He raised his head to the sky, facing the moon, and exhaled again and again. In the sky above his head, strands of silver-white light emerged continuously and quickly rushed to Di Shirtian's position. This was the essence of the sun and moon. However, the essence of the sun and moon this time was different from the previous absorption. It was like a small speck of light, but it turned into strands of silver-white light and fell down. Imagine, to condense this light, who knows how many particles were needed to fuse and condense together. This kind of efficiency was many times faster than in the past. The silver-white light surged to his side and poured into his body through the open pores. The mystic moon refining technique is indeed worthy of being the secret technique of the Fox clan. It can actually allow me to absorb the essence of the sun and moon. The speed and the quantity are 10 times or even 100 times faster than before. It's really amazing. Di Shirtian absorbed the mystic yin force falling from the moon. He was secretly amazed in his heart. The secret technique of the Fox clan was really amazing. It could increase the speed of absorbing the essence of the sun and moon by 100 times. If it was used in cultivation, it would definitely increase the speed of one's cultivation by 10 times or even 100 times. Others needed 100 years to transform, but those who practiced the mystic moon refining technique only needed a year or 10 years. The difference was huge. It could be seen that this technique was very important. It was definitely not a small matter or a small difference. As he thought about it, his body did not stop. Under the control of his mind, the absorbed mysterious yin energy did not fuse into his meridians. Instead, it went through 9 cycles in his body and turned into a mysterious energy. Then it quickly fused into his flesh and blood. This merging was very mysterious. It seemed to be connecting with every inch of his muscles. Moreover, the silver-white mystic force did not completely merge with his flesh and blood. Instead, it condensed and formed silver-white meridians. It connected to every part of his body. The mystic moon refining technique must first shape the meridians, condense the meridians, connect the meridians to the whole body, and transform the body. This sentence was the opening sentence of the mystic moon refining technique. It could be said that it ran through the whole text and contained the supreme, true meaning of the mystic moon refining technique. If he did not hear it with his own ears and know the secret, Tion would never believe that there was such a magical secret technique in this world. He could not help but admire the wisdom of the ancient demon clan, using the mystic force to shape the 8 extraordinary meridians in the body and reconstruct the meridians, which are no different from the meridians in the human body. Then, with these meridians, the whole body's flesh and blood can be turned into a human. This kind of secret technique is really shocking. Bai who taught me this secret technique so easily. I owe her a big favor. Sakura smiled bitterly in his heart. However, when there were too many lice, there was no oxygen. Anyway, in the past, the soul-amassing pill, the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box, in addition to the debt of saving his life last time, and this time, the mysterious secret technique was given to him. If he really wanted to calculate, the relationship between him and the white fox was simply omnipresent. As for the debt of gratitude, it would be very difficult to calculate clearly. Although he gave her a promise was a promise. A favor could not be fully repaid. The mystic moon refining technique molded the meridians in the human body in the demon clan's body. One could imagine how precious such a secret technique was. I owe her a big favor. Tion muttered to himself. Without saying anything more, he raised his head and looked at the moon. He inhaled and exhaled. Like swallows returning to their nests, the silver-white threads flowed into his body endlessly. After entering his body, they followed the secret technique and molded the meridians one by one. First, he molded the 12 standard meridians. On the first day, he molded the gallbladder meridian, liver meridian, and lung meridian. The next day, the large intestine meridian, stomach meridian, and spleen meridian were formed. On the third day, the heart meridian, small intestine meridian, and bladder meridian were formed. Every day, new meridians would be formed. At the same time, Tion could faintly feel that his control over the demonic chi was also becoming more proficient in this process. Every day, he would have extraordinary gains. Unknowingly, his understanding of himself also increased. Time passed day by day. After sculpting the 12 standard meridians, it was time to sculpt the 8 extraordinary meridians. As time passed, numerous silver-white meridians began to spread throughout his body, connecting together. His chi and blood also began to circulate according to these meridians. The blood and flesh all over his body became abnormally excited, as if some kind of mysterious change was about to occur at any time. Du meridian, Ren meridian, Chon meridian, Dai meridian, Inwei meridian, Yangwei meridian, and Inxiao meridian. His meridians were being perfected. On the 9th day, the last Yangheil meridian was successfully formed. Boom, boom, boom. At the moment when all the meridians were successfully molded, the inside of Sakura's body was like the creation of heaven and earth in the chaos. Rumbling sounds were unceasing. All the meridians were connected into one in an instant, forming a complete meridian circulation. It ran through his entire body. His chi and blood were vibrating violently and rolling continuously. At this moment, the demonic chi in the demon abode naturally rushed out and directly rushed into the newly formed meridians. However, it was extremely difficult for the demonic chi to move through the newly formed meridians. Every step forward seemed to be breaking through the blocked parts of the meridians. It's the 9th day. Tion should be at the final step of transforming his body. In the valley, by who had unknowingly left the cave abode. She did not continue to cultivate in seclusion. Instead, she stared unblinkingly in the direction of the waterfall. A faint smile appeared in her eyes as she said, "However, it's not that easy to truly transform. To form new meridians, you have to break through the meridians again and completely integrate the meridians with your body. Moreover, you have to break through all the meridians in one go. Otherwise, you won't be able to achieve perfection. During this process, there must not be any pause. You have to break through all the meridians in one go and finally integrate them with your body and connect them together. When you can circulate your chi and blood, you have truly cultivated this secret technique to perfection. Otherwise, it will be a failure. You won't be able to truly transform. Moreover, the process of breaking through the meridians was a rather painful one. Go. You have to break through all the barriers and pierce through your body. Demon Refining Cauldron, turn for me." Di Shirtian's heart emitted an aura of solitude. His mind drove the Demon Refining Cauldron, and it began to spin wildly. Waves of pure demonic chi were constantly spewing out from the cauldron as it spun. At the same time, the cauldron was constantly absorbing large amounts of essence from the countless bodies in the cauldron, refined into demonic chi and used it as a shield in the cauldron. Wave after wave of demonic chi surged into the meridians, turning into roaring beasts that rushed towards the barriers in each meridian. In the beginning, it was like a hot knife through butter. Every time it broke through a barrier, the two meridians would be completely connected and perfectly fused together. Of course, when it broke through the meridians, the terrible pain of opening up the meridians also emerged in waves. This caused Di Shirtian's body to constantly tremble. Breaking through the meridians must be done in one go. I can't back down halfway. Go for me. I don't believe that I can't break through with such a large amount of demonic chi. The demonic chi flowed endlessly and roared continuously. The barriers in front of it were all broken through in an instant like clay chickens and pottery dogs. 1, 2, 3. In a few breaths, he broke through 2/3 of the meridians in one go with the help of the massive amount of demonic chi. However, no matter how ferocious the demonic chi was, every time it broke through the meridians, the ferocious demonic chi would be worn down a little. In the process, the demonic chi was also rapidly consumed. When it reached 2/3, there was less than 1/3 left. Bang, bang, bang. When it began to break through the barriers in front of it again, that barrier was like a dam in front of a reservoir, stubbornly blocking the front. Time and time again, the barrier was on the verge of collapse, but it couldn't be completely broken through. It was blocked outside. No, I can't give up. Refining form and breaking through the meridians, Mystic Moon, help me. Sakura fiercely opened his eyes, and the 108,000 pores on his body instantly emitted a tyrannical devouring power, swallowing the demonic mist outside his body into his body, and quickly transforming it into demonic primordial energy, rushing into his meridians and merging with the previous demonic primordial energy. In an instant, the demonic chi grew stronger and roared as it rushed towards the barrier. With a rumble, his meridians trembled violently. He broke through, but when he tried to break through the next barrier, he felt powerless again. Boom, boom, boom. However, at this moment, Di Shirtian operated the Mystic Moon refining technique to the extreme. His body was like a magnet, madly sucking in the moonlight. The void shook violently. With a swoosh, a silver-white light pillar instantly fell from the moon, covering Di Shirtian and the reef beneath him in an instant. The silver-white light pillar stood between heaven and earth, connecting everything to the heavens. In a light pillar, countless streaks of mystic essence poured into Di Shirtian's body like a fountain. The mystic energy rushed into his body and into his meridians, intertwining with the original demonic chi in one fell swoop, violently attacking the remaining meridians. Bang, bang, bang. This time, the massive amount of essence that had descended from the heavens combined with the demonic chi was incredibly powerful. His breakthrough was like a hot knife through butter. One by one, the barriers collapsed. In the blink of an eye, all of the meridians in his body had been completely connected and were now truly connected as one. And just as it penetrated all the meridians in his body, a surge of turbulent power suddenly emerged from all over his body. In an instant, every inch of his flesh and blood was undergoing an incredible reversal. The pitch-black demonic chi, like smoke, rolled out and rushed into the sky. Who is this? To be able to attract such a huge amount of essence from the sun and the moon, who is going to transform? But there is no transformation demonic tribulation. What is this? In the 100 Flowers Valley, the girl looked at the myriad demon valley in shock. A towering pillar stood between heaven and earth, and she could clearly feel the enormous mystic energy contained in it. Even she could not attract such a huge amount of mystic energy. 2 in 1, a 6,000-word chapter. To be continued. If you want to know the rest, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 135. Sister. That's the location of Brother D's myriad demon valley. Jun Yao also looked at the heavenly pillar, her eyes full of confusion. But how did Brother D attract such a large amount of moonlight essence? Could it be that Brother D is about to transform? That's impossible. There are no shortcuts to cultivation. It's the same for humans. If they don't have good spiritual roots and extraordinary talent, it's difficult for them to achieve anything in their lifetime. But it's even more so for us demons. Often, we'll cultivate for decades or even centuries, but we can't compare to humans who cultivate for 10 or 8 years. Last time, you said that D. Shurtian's cultivation is only at the initial stage of a demon. He has just opened up his demon palace, and his strength is comparable to a demon king. But no matter how strong he is, if he doesn't reach the peak, he won't be able to attract the demonic tribulation and transform. The girl muttered to herself as she looked at the myriad demon valley. She shook her head slightly. With her current cultivation, she knew very well that there were no shortcuts on the path of cultivation. If there were shortcuts, and they weren't cultivated step by step, sooner or later, they would be deeply harmed. Those who could succeed in one step were not demons, but devils. The path of devils cultivated very quickly. That was because they walked the unconventional path. In order to increase their strength, they didn't care about the consequences. It was said that there were some secret techniques of the path of devils that could use a core formation stage golden core to create a living core formation stage cultivator. Moreover, they would have the strength of a core formation stage cultivator and be able to use it. That was why the path of devils had the word devil in it. It was because they could reap without sowing and steal the cultivation results of others. They could improve by leaps and bounds. Their cultivation speed was something that immortal cultivators and demon cultivators couldn't compare to. Therefore, the techniques of the path of devils had always been known for their strangeness. However, although the path of devils cultivated quickly, it also brought about corresponding hidden dangers. Often, when they cultivated to a certain stage, the hidden dangers would erupt, causing them to go berserk and lose their minds. Thousands of demons would devour their hearts, and they would die miserably. These are not few in number. It could be seen that in this world in cultivation, there were absolutely no shortcuts that could be taken. For example, D. Shurtian had obtained the corpses of thousands of cultivators. If he had the power contained within those corpses, he would definitely have been able to reach the peak of the demon beast level in one fell swoop. He would have been able to form an inner core and become a demon beast. However, he would not be able to do so in one fell swoop. He would need time to slowly refine the corpses. Step by step, he would need to extract their quintessence energy and personally transform it into his own demonki. It would also take a lot of time. Therefore, the power obtained this way was a cultivation base that truly belonged to him. There were absolutely no hidden dangers. What he relied on was his own heavenly demon palace, which allowed him to have such a miraculous ability. Amazing speed. Otherwise, they could only use the method of devouring flesh and blood to refine it like other demon beasts. This was the true wonder of a heaven-grade demon abode, the unique ability to look down on other demon abodes. Go to the Myriad Demon Valley now and ask your big brother D to come to the 100 Flowers Valley. Big sister wishes to meet him personally. The young woman pondered for a moment before raising her head to look at the vermilion bird and speaking softly. Big sister, Jour will go now. Hearing this, the vermilion bird's eyes lit up. Flapping her wings, she left behind a red streamer and quickly left the valley. Seeing this, the young woman could not help but chuckle a few times. She raised her head again and looked at the pillar of light. Something seems to have happened in the Myriad Demon Valley. The heavenly pillar that fell from the moon was clearly visible throughout the southern barbarian lands. Naturally, it alarmed all the experts in the southern barbarian lands. On a mountain peak, Medusa stood quietly against the wind and looked at the pillar of light. Well, it just so happens that I have something to look for D-Shirty on. My injuries are more or less healed, so it's time to go. Medusa muttered to herself. With a turn of her body, a demonic wind rose from the ground and carried her quickly to the Myriad Demon Valley. At the same time, all the demon kings in other places were looking at the amazing heavenly pillar in amazement. They were secretly guessing what had happened. At this time, in the heavenly pillar, D-Shirtion, who was wrapped in countless mysterious force, had undergone an incredible change. The mysterious moon was refined, and the meridians were reconstructed. The meridians were connected with the flesh and blood of the whole body. The flesh and blood were constantly vibrating and squirming, and a strong black light burst out from the whole body. In this black light, D-Shirtion roared. The huge tiger body directly stood up, and the hair on the whole body disappeared. The two tiger legs reversed inch by inch, and the claws turned into feet. The tiger legs also transformed into human thighs. After this change, it began to move upward. The legs, the body, the hands, and finally the head, all of them were rapidly changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When his entire demon body had completely transformed into a human form, Indra looked up to the sky and roared. The dense demon fog that originally shrouded his entire body instantly converged. In the midst of the roar, that heavenly pillar that had fallen from the moon also collapsed on the spot. The enormous, mysterious power also collapsed and scattered in all directions, and didn't continue to surge into his body. Although it is not a real transformation, D-Shirtion, will not let that day come for too long. D-Shirtion's whole body burst out with a kind of aura. His eyes were shining like sharp arrows, piercing through people's souls. There was a kind of arrogance in his voice. Because he had just transformed, his whole body was naked, and there was not a single piece of clothing covering his body. However, one could clearly see his muscular body. He was 185 meters tall, and on his lower abdomen, there were perfect abdominal muscles, layer upon layer. His chest was as strong as steel, and on his arms, there were inch by inch like dragons coiling around each other. His face was as sharp as a knife, and his eyebrows were slightly raised. A fierce aura suddenly surged out of his body, and in his eyes, there was a trace of coldness and arrogance. His pitch-black hair casually draped down, fluttering behind his head. On his forehead, there was a purple mark. If one looked closely, they would see that this mark was actually the purple king mark on his forehead when he was in his monster body. However, the king rune that appeared on his forehead was much smaller. Moreover, it also formed a mysterious king rune. It wasn't the original king character, but a king rune imprint formed by a mysterious rune. It seemed to be divine writing, but also seemed to be ancient demon writing. Exuding a strong majesty, the king mark was constantly pulsating in a tyrannical pressure suddenly spurted out, surging out in all directions. In an instant, the entire myriad demon valley was covered under the pressure. King! At this moment, all the creatures in the valley knelt down at the same time. In the face of this pressure, they instinctively did not have the slightest intention to resist. He wantonly released his chi and looked up at the sky. His eyes were deep, as if he was thinking about something. However, in the blink of an eye, he came back to his senses. He took out his bag of holding and gently touched it. There was a flash of light, and a black robe appeared in his hand. With a shake of his body, he quickly put on the black robe. It covered his naked body. His strong body was shrouded in the black robe, and the black robe fluttered in the wind, which set off his strong arrogance. Today I, Di Shirtian, once again have the appearance of a human. However, the past is long gone. I was a human in my previous life, but in this life, I am already a demon. This world is a world full of immortals, demons, ghosts, and gods. In my previous life, I could look down on Shanghai, but in this life, I still want to ask, who is the master of the Kangman continent? Di Shirtian looked up at the void, and his words could be said to be sonorous and powerful. It was the first time he had spoken his heart with a human body. The last 8 words surged in his heart, and a supreme aura surged in his heart. Although this aura was not strong now, it represented his unique temperament. Not bad. You indeed have excellent talent. You should know that the mystic moon shape refining technique, even in my Fox clan, requires the care and guidance of an expert by the side to reach perfection. But you can actually cultivate it to perfection on your own. You even drew down the moon pillar, and with the help of the essence of the moon, broke through all the meridians in your body in one fell swoop and took form. I can't help but admire you. At this time, Baihu had also unknowingly appeared on the peak of the waterfall, and her eyes contained a deep smile. She sized up Di Shirtian's appearance after taking form. He thought to himself, this Sakura, although his appearance after transformation is not that of those extraordinarily handsome cultivators among the immortal cultivators, he has a unique temperament and is very powerful. Coupled with the aloofness in his eyes, he is indeed very good. His face is clear and his heart is clear. It seems that he must have a lot of stories. Indeed, Di Shirtian's appearance could not be considered handsome, and compared to Zhong Yunfei's devilishly handsome appearance, there was even less of a comparison. However, coupled with his unique temperament, there was a unique charm that was very interesting. Miss Baihu. Di Shirtian turned to look at Baihu. Wait. Baihu shook her head and interrupted. Who said my name is Baihu? I like you, so I'll tell you. Next time, don't call me by the wrong name. My name is Su Tianxiang. Because of my identity in the cultivation world, I am called the Heavenly Fragrance Fox Monarch. Her name came from her unique fragrance. Outsiders called her the Heavenly Fragrance Fox Monarch, but they did not know that her real name was Tianxiang. After saying that, Baihu's body flashed with white light, and the original Baihu suddenly disappeared, and a peerless beauty stood in place. She was dressed in a snow-white palace dress that perfectly accentuated her figure. Her pitch-black hair was tied up by a jade hairpin and draped over her shoulders. Her entire body was curvaceous from top to bottom, as if she was a masterpiece of the heavens. All the beautiful things in the world were completely entrusted to one person. Between her 2 arms, there was a ribbon woven from an unknown material that danced in the wind. Waves of exotic fragrance wafted from her body, and people couldn't help but be immersed in it. It really is you. After seeing Baihu's appearance, Di Shirtian finally let go of all the doubts in his heart. This was the beautiful face that he had seen twice. Since you're here, why hide? Baihu smiled faintly, then suddenly looked to the side and said something inexplicable. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 136. What? Who's there? De Chertion raised his eyebrows, and a cold expression appeared in his eyes. He followed Baihu's gaze and looked to the left. Emitting a cold light, he said coldly, "Come out." As he spoke, he swiped his storage bag with his right hand, and a green wooden ruler quickly flew out and landed in his hand. Before he finished speaking, the green ruler had already been thrown to the left. It emitted a strong green light and smashed into the void. Bang! That green ruler was the spoils of war he obtained from a fierce battle with 2 Foundation establishment cultivators of the Leaf family at Tiger Hill. It was a rather decent Dharma artifact. When he held it in his hand, the demonic aura in his body instantly poured into the green ruler. The huge amount of demonic aura pushed the power of the green ruler to the limit in one fell swoop. It smashed down heavily. However, a strand of black hair suddenly appeared in the void. The hair became long and slender, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a crimson-red snake. Like a spirit snake coming out of its hole, it coiled around the green ruler, uncoiled it, and shook it. In just 3 moves, the demonic aura contained in the green ruler was completely removed. Then, a snow-white jade hand stretched out, and the green ruler gently landed in her hand, as if it was automatically delivered. At the same time, the appearance of the newcomer was completely revealed. "It's you, Queen Medusa." De Chertion couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise when he saw the newcomer. However, when he recalled that Medusa had said that she would come back to find him after the battle with Li Kanglin, he was somewhat relieved. After all, the commotion he made earlier was too big. There were probably few demonic beasts in the southern barbarian lands who didn't know about the sky-piercing divine pillar. "Well, I didn't expect you to have transformed. However, why is there no inner core in your body? I feel that your cultivation doesn't seem to have improved either." In fact, Medusa had only just arrived when the white fox had transformed into a human. However, even so, her heart was still in turmoil. First of all, De Chertion didn't have the strength he should have after taking human form. He also didn't condense an inner core in his body. This was strange enough. Also, what surprised her the most was Baihu. When Baihu said the words, "heavenly fragrant fox monarch," her identity was immediately exposed. Although the Southern Barbarian was a small place, there were several demon kings in the demon clan. The Heavenly Fragrance Fox Monarch was one of the more famous ones. Her strength was already comparable to a nascent soul stage powerhouse. How could they not be surprised that such a powerful being would appear here all of a sudden? Medusa greets the Fox King. Following that, she also greeted the white fox with a hint of respect. However, she was cold by nature and did not show much of a reaction. After all, she was now a demon king who had condensed an inner core and stepped into the forest of demon clan powerhouses. Baihu's mouth pulled a beautiful arc and said with a smile, "So it's Sister Medusa. We are both from the demon clan. There's no need to be so polite. You and I can call each other sisters in the future. Just call me Tianxiang." She didn't feel the slightest murderous intent from Medusa. Obviously, the other party was not an enemy. She, who knew the situation of a demon clan, naturally understood that every new demon clan member who took human form was a great increase in overall strength. When Medusa heard this, a smile appeared on her cold face. She bowed again and said, "Sister greets Sister Tianxiang." "Good." Baihu smiled and took Medusa's hand, appearing very close. Medusa also threw the green ruler back to De Chertion. Wait for Zhu. Zhu also wants to be a sister." At this moment, a scarlet ray of light rapidly flew over from afar. A crisp voice sounded. Looking over, it was the vermilion bird. "Zhu, why are you here?" Medusa asked curiously when she saw Zhu fly to her side. The vermilion bird usually stayed in the 100 Flowers Valley and didn't come out easily. Moreover, she also knew that there was that person in the 100 Flowers Valley. If the vermilion bird came out, it often meant that that person in the valley had something to do. Could it be that the heavenly moon pillar that De Chertion brought over just now attracted her attention? She thought to herself. However, the vermilion bird's next words immediately dispelled her doubts. The vermilion bird flapped her wings and said, Sister asked me to come. The vermilion bird flew in front of Bai Hu and blinked. Kinju, call you Sister Tianxiang too? Of course. Bai Hu smiled. She reached out and let the vermilion bird land in her palm. That's great. Zhu has another sister now. Zhu jumped for joy. If anything happens in the future, I'll have another sister to help me out. I'm so happy. Sweat. So this was the reason why the vermilion bird recognized her as a sister. Medusa and Baihu couldn't help but shake their heads. Dishirtian also shook his head. Seeing that many people had come, it seemed that they all had something to do. Therefore, he didn't want to continue chatting outside. He brought Baihu and the others back to the cave abode. Now that he was in human form, he couldn't lie on the ground like before. After entering the cave abode, he frowned slightly. With a thought, he took out a large pile of jade stones from his storage pouch. There were many of such jade stones in the pouch. They were all obtained from the cultivators. After taking them out, he used his monster vitality to quickly melt these jade stones together and shape them into a round jade table. Then he made a few jade stools and placed them in the cave. He also took out a jade gourd and 4 wine cups and placed them on the jade table. Please. Dishirtian sat on the main seat and greeted by Hu and the others. Then they all sat down. The little vermilion bird also stood on the jade table and stared at the jade gourd on the table without blinking. Without saying anything, Dishirtian opened the jade gourd and poured the wine into the cups. Suddenly, a stream of golden liquid fell from the gourd into the cups. The golden liquid was like amber and was extremely sticky. Traces of mellow wine fragrance slowly spread out from the cups. After filling the cups, the 4 cups of golden liquid were placed on the table. This wine is... Medusa smelled this wine fragrance that she had never smelled before. A strange look flashed across her face. From this wine, she felt a kind of condensed, mysterious, spiritual energy that didn't disperse. Obviously, this was a kind of spiritual wine that could increase one's cultivation. This cup is the monkey wine that one of my subordinates brewed a long time ago. It has been brewed for 100 years. Everyone can try it. Dishirtian held up a cup of wine and pointed at it from afar. This wine was not an ordinary monkey wine. It was a real 100-year-old monkey wine that was collected. The taste of the wine and the unique spiritual energy contained in the wine were 10 times or even 100 times more than ordinary monkey wine. It was extremely precious. Even Dishirtian only had 3 gourds. He had always been reluctant to drink it. Now, he made an exception and took out a gourd. This is really good wine. Baihu took a small sip. She closed her eyes and carefully tasted the different flavors in the wine. She couldn't help but nod her head in praise. This 100-year-old monkey wine was more delicious than ordinary monkey wine. It was really a rare product. Hearing this, the vermilion bird hurriedly stuck her head into the wine cup and drank the wine in one gulp. Her eyes clearly lit up as she said, "It's really good. It's as good as the 100 Flowers immortal wine that my sister brewed. Although this wine is good, it's a pity that there's not much of it." Dishirtian said calmly. He looked at Medusa and asked, "Medusa, last time you said that you would come to me. Now you're here. It should be because of the previous matter." After hearing her words, Dishirtian knew that Medusa would definitely come to the Myriad Demon Valley. He had already guessed it in his heart. After all, there were not many things that could attract her attention. After a little elimination, he could roughly guess it. Sure enough, Medusa did not hide anything. Her eyes stared straight at Dishirtian. She gently opened her red lips and said straightforwardly, "On that day, I saw you take out that jade instrument. If I'm not mistaken, that should be your natal demon weapon." That's right. Sakura didn't deny this. Baihu, on the other hand, was interested in slowly tasting the wine in the cup while listening to the conversation between the two. She did not interrupt. "I want to ask you to teach me the refining method of the natal demon weapon." In a word, she went straight to the point. What she wanted was the refining method of the demon weapon. After all, she had now condensed her Niden and was a real demon. She could start to refine her own demon weapon. At that time, With the demon weapon, her strength would become more powerful. In addition, Di Shirtian's previous eye-catching actions with the Seven Sins demonic zither made Medusa realize that a good magic weapon definitely had extraordinary power. Di Shirtian heard it, but he just pondered and did not immediately agree. As a reward, this is a treasure that I accidentally obtained before. I'll give it to you as an exchange. Medusa's wrist turned, and a pitch-black bead appeared in her hand. On this bead, black light flowed like flowing water. It looked very strange. However, the most peculiar thing was that there was a strange power flowing on this bead. It was as if there was a pool of black water in the bead. Around the bead, specks of silvery white light slowly gathered around it. It seemed to be absorbing the moonlight. I accidentally obtained this bead. All these years, I only know that if you put this bead on your body, it can increase the speed of absorbing the essence of the sun and moon by about 3 times. It's a very good treasure to assist in cultivation. Medusa gently placed the bead on the jade table, and then looked at Di Shirtan without blinking. Good. This is the refining ancient book of the natal demon weapon. Di Shirtan's eyes flashed. He looked at the bead, took out the refining ancient book, and placed it on the jade table. It was not very difficult for him to get the refining ancient book. It was just the spoil of war obtained from the cultivators. It was just that this kind of ancient book was relatively rare. The things inside had long been memorized in his mind, and he used it to exchange for a bead. It was not a loss. In fact, it was a big advantage. The exchange between the two was very direct. One took the bead, and the other took the ancient book. The exchange between them was completed. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.